OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
Right, it's 7:30. Where the hell do you start after a day like yesterday? More goals yesterday than there have been in some entire episodes of a European Championships, and not just the ones where there was like 2 games. I don't know where to start, Eoin. Do we start with the Spanish goalkeeping calamity that gave Croatia their in, or the crazy Croatian comeback, or the brilliant performance by Spain in extra time? Do you want to start with the heartbreak of Kylian Mbappe, or is it Paul Pogba's world and Manchester United fans are going, I mean, what can we have that? Could we just have a little bit of that? And where was N'Golo Kante compared to the normal N'Golo Kante? What was going on?
N'Golo Kante kind of existing on the left wing at times in that first half. Didier Deschamps' team selection yesterday is right up there in terms of one of the great modern moments of comedy. It has given us so much joy. It gave Switzerland so much hope, and it resulted in one of the craziest ends to a crazy day of football. The two games that go to extra time plus penalties, 240 plus minutes. That is longer than the screen version of Hamlet starring Kenneth Branagh, and that is bloody long. Now, of course, there are a whole pile of similes you could now make comparing that particular tragedy to the one last night of the French, but I'll leave that up to you.
The Deschamps thing, right? Like, I have to say I was completely rope-a-doped by the performance of France in the semi-finals of the World Cup, in the finals of the World Cup, and even the first performance against Germany. I was like, oh no, all that's happened here is that he's built a defence to make sure that they don't get caught like they did in the Euros 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and actually he's going to allow the full expression of this team to come out. But that did not happen. That, like, from that first game where they were actually good against what I think is going to turn out to be a decent German side, they just got more and more progressively, weirdly conservative. And even though they scored 3 times last night, it was still an ultra-conservative team selection. And they didn't score until they went 4-4-2, right?
And also just strange, given the options that weren't available to him, to go 3 at the back, to essentially play Rabiot as a left-wing back when Dean was injured and Lucas Hernandez not fully fit. Your 2 left-wing backs not available basically to you, and you go to that formation, which is mad. That is the only way you can describe it. Like, it's interesting to look back at that Germany game now, given we understand how this story ends, because at the time the criticism you could have made is, should France have been a little bit more dominant? Should they have asserted themselves a little bit more in that second half rather than sitting back and counter-attacking? And it's interesting, Arsene Wenger was on BN last night, and he said that France relied too much on counter-attacking, that in this tournament a higher than usual number of goals are being scored in play construction. France showed very little of that all tournament. And he's right. They were very much reactive to what the opposition were doing. They felt that if they could sit back and submit to what the opponent was actually doing in terms of a style of play, France would be able to catch them in the break time and time again. And that's not a very sustainable way of going to win a tournament. It might get you out of the group. It did get them out of the group, but it's not going to get you all the way. Now, there are a number of other factors that perhaps could have been at play yesterday that would have seen them through that situation, but they shot themselves in the foot so badly that they put themselves behind and gave themselves a mountain of work to do.
So, is Zinedine Zidane sitting on his couch laughing, going, I'm going to win the World Cup with this crowd? Is that what's happening?
I would say...
Are they sacking him?
I think it will be an extremely harsh decision, but I think that the reaction to last night will be that of a genuine tragedy in French sport, that they will feel that this was the moment for them to sort of complete the full house, for Deschamps to complete the full house, and this was his opportunity. And now I think that there will be enough pressure on the French Football Federation to take that opportunity away from him in 3 years' time.
But I mean, in 3 years' time.
Well, but sorry, he won't get a chance in 3 years' time because he won't be manager for the World Cup next year. I think that it will be such a hysterical response to this. And in fairness, a lot of it will be based on the manager and the facts and what the manager actually brought to proceedings. And as we heard just there, just for a brief glimmer, like, I mean, creating these moments of madness is down to the manager at their disposal, and he's going to fall on the sword, I reckon.
Let's have a listen to the commentary of the winning summer save by Swiss sports station fast SRF.
Anlauf und Jan Sommer steht da, bereit, den Ball zu krallen. Mbappe gegen Sommer. Mbappe. Sommer hält! Sommer hält! Sommer hält! Die Schweiz gecheckt. Was ist los? Ja! Ja! Er zählt! Der Treffer zählt! Die Schweiz steht im Viertelfinale! Im Viertelfinale der Europameisterschaft! Ei, Frau! True! Wahnsinn!
I didn't actually see a replay of it. I presume it was fine, was it?
I presume so. The UEFA don't tend to give us the full truth when it comes to certain replays. Premier League, I think we got used to being overly generous with our replays. And who cares? I don't want to see the replay. I just want to see the celebration and the Swiss players going absolutely crazy. Like, did you think Mbappe was going to miss when he stepped up?
I don't know. I mean, you kind of feel like this is supposed to be Mbappe's tournament, and Philippe LeClaire from the pre-tournament was like, I think there's something wrong with Mbappe, and so far he kind of had been like, not quite, you know, there was still room for Mbappe to score twice last night, score twice in the quarters, once in the semi, and then a hat-trick in the final, and be like, wow, look at me, I'm the greatest footballer of all time. But that didn't happen.
It didn't. But if we go back to one of the early indicators in this tournament, that Germany game, I thought Mbappe looked really good that night. And we said the morning after, well, I said the morning after, I'm not going to throw you under the bus with me, that Mbappe is going to have an Argentina-type moment in this tournament where it's like, okay, I own the World Cup, now I own the European Championships. This is my ground. I'm the best footballer in the world. And that felt like it was an automated thing, that there was just no question about happening. And it just seems weird this morning that it hasn't happened. That little moment in extra time where he has such a good opportunity and his right foot, his standing foot, just slips. Just there's a slight slip. He looks like he's injured himself as that happens. And I know he had the back heel that leads up to Benzema's goal, his second goal, and there were nice moments here and there. But I just felt when he was walking up to that penalty last night, I was like, this is it. This is how the story ends. This is how the tragedy is supposed to end. And we've got this first real downslope in the story of Kylian Mbappe, this ridiculously talented human being, somebody who seems semi-human at times because he is so talented, crafted in such an industrialized way, gone through the perfect systems, created to be the perfect footballer, almost robot-like in how they've created him. And now we have a glitch. We have a major glitch. If he was a piece of technology, he will be recalled this morning because something has gone badly wrong with Kylian Mbappe. And it is spectacular that this moment has happened as a result of him missing a penalty, of him missing an incredible chance in extra time. And it makes him infinitely more interesting as a character than he was 24 hours ago.
Jerome Rotten, 2 days before the last 16 match, said that he's a leader on the pitch, no problem. That his ego extends to off the field too. That bothers me. I think Deschamps can no longer manage it. It is problematic. It is surprising he lets Mbappe do so many things. It can be seen in his performances on the pitch today. We cannot say that Kylian Mbappe has had a successful Euros. This is pre the penalty miss, so there is going to be a significant backlash in France against Mbappe, and so maybe that kicks him off away from France and he moves. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting now. Like the ramifications for this are going to be quite serious, I think, from a France perspective. And like, I'd love to see Zidane manage that team. Wouldn't that be better?
Well, but also Zidane is somebody who puts his arm around Mbappe straight away and is like, it's okay, you've missed a penalty. You've got a World Cup. I mean, like, this is going to happen for you sooner or later. Don't worry. And that's what he needs right now. Like, he released a statement last night. I'm not a fan of this. The players having to feel the need to go onto Twitter to apologise for something. So, like, he talks about it being difficult to turn the page, the sadness being huge after the elimination. I'm sorry for the penalty, he says. I wanted to help the team, but I failed. It will be difficult to sleep, but this is what happens in this sport I love so much. Like, it's quite heartbreaking to see that. None of his teammates going over to him immediately after missing the penalty was quite telling as well. I'm sure they're all going through their own little moments of individual grief.
Yeah, I saw people giving out about that. Like, I mean, I don't know. I'm not reading too much into that. Like, yeah, the bunch of selfish players worried about themselves and also not really wanting to be in the camera at that precise moment, you know? Do you want to be, you know?
It just felt very individual, very walk of shame from Kylian Mbappe for quite a long time afterwards. And maybe that's just a reaction to what we normally see, except if you're Loris Karius, which is your players coming to comfort you after something badly goes wrong in a game. Even Unai Simon had a couple of players come over to him after he...
That's in the middle of the game.
Yeah.
That's in the middle of the game.
Yeah.
That was a spectacular own goal. That was like, I mean, of all of the stuff that happened yesterday, Unai Simon is pretty fortunate that everything else happens after that. That's the very first thing that happens, because it won't get replayed again and again and again and again today on an endless loop. It will at the end of the tournament. We go, oh, hang on a second. Remember, Pedri's first goal for Spain was an own goal, because he fairly fizzed that ball back. I was listening to Graham Hunter, and he's like, definitely not Pedri's fault, but like just a little, and a couple of inches to the side of the post there, maybe, or the other side, as opposed to, oh, shoot.
And the ball does start on the outside of the post as well. So, like, why are you curling the ball back to your goalkeeper? It's remarkable. You're right in that Unai Simon has been forgotten a little bit, because the 200 minutes that happened of football afterwards kind of coloured that. But in those 200 minutes, you had two incredible Simon moments. It's the second one in particular, just an incredible piece of goalkeeping. He was truly redeemed. He went out of his way to redeem himself. And then I think in that first half as well, that Alvaro Morata header was one of the worst headers I've ever seen from a professional footballer. To be that close to goal and to head it so far away from target, I don't think we really appreciated how bad a miss that was. So for him to get the ball in a similar place in extra time, but to take a touch this time, and then on the half volley to smash it into the back of the net, that is balls. And it is the same from Simon as well. And the two of them, they've had their Mbappe dip in their character arc last night, but the two of them said, nah, screw that, and they got their peak as well. This is a stat view. Morata, that was his 5th goal at the Euros. So he's Spain's joint highest goal scorer at the European Championships.
Makes
as
sense.
a result of that, alongside Fernando Torres.
Like the winning goal from the Euros that Fernando Torres is hurdling the Germans in, that was popped into my timeline this morning. Fernando Torres doesn't get enough love because he had that dip in his career, but like, wow, what a beast. What an absolute beast Fernando Torres was. And we didn't appreciate it fully at the time. I mean, maybe if you are a Liverpool fan, you did. I had a theory about how Fernando Torres is that one signing that Liverpool were able to make that restored their credibility internationally as a club. That actually having a single individual player, because if you remember back before Benitez got there, like what were Liverpool for about a decade? Nothing really. Like they were like Arsenal in the last half decade of Wenger, and like Arsenal now. So a single individual massive signing like that kind of jolts the world awake. That's why Villa need to keep Grealish, basically, was my...
Yeah, it was Michael Owen and Steven Gerrard would have been the very fabric of that, and Robbie Fowler prior to that. And maybe there was just a lull after Owen, where there was like, okay, who's actually going to be the person who steps up and is their iconic number 9, and he certainly did that.
7:43 this morning, OTB AM, brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with our new and improved razors. Let me tell you what's coming up between now and 10 o'clock this morning. We have a very busy programme for you. We've got our Euros debrief. Obviously, we're starting that. We're going to talk with Phil in just a moment. Daniel Harris standing by. We're going to talk about England. We're going to talk about some transfer stuff. We're going to talk about the games last night. Running through the sports pages. Katie Power is going to talk to us about the Camogie season. We've got Euros, more talk about the Euros at 8:50. Frankie Dolan has a book out, the Roscommon legend. 9:10, we're going to hear from him this morning, and more reaction from 9:30. Now, Phil Egan, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, lads. How are you doing?
How do you make sense of yesterday? Where do you start?
Well, look, you know me, lads. I try and stay calm and reassured, and wouldn't really get into hyperbole, but that's probably the greatest day of international football I've ever watched. It was unbelievable. And the Simon own goal pretty much set the tone for what was about to happen. That you were there thinking, what have I just watched? When Simon's own goal goes in, and then that's pretty much how I felt going to bed last night. What the hell have I just watched? France are out of the Euros, Spain are into the quarterfinals, and now there's a host of teams thinking, we can win this. I picked Denmark as my dark horse. I'm starting to think, like when I said dark horse, I thought like semi-final, maybe final at a stretch, but Denmark now must be thinking, we can win this.
Why limit it to just international football, Phil? Why isn't this the greatest day of sport, full stop?
Do you know what? That's a fair point. That is a fair point. Sometimes you get the crossover where there's different sports going on at the same time, and that kind of adds to it all, where this was just purely football. But there's people out there that don't like international football. That when the Premier League is on and there's a break for international football, they think, well, when's the Premier League coming back? This is why you have qualifying for international football tournaments. this is it. Like, this is the magic. I saw somebody say, when you got to squeeze a bit of juice out, like, this is what you do it for.
Yeah, if you can't handle me at my England versus San Marino, you don't deserve me at my France versus Switzerland, I think is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know what? We've still got 2 more games today in the last 16, and then the quarterfinals could throw up anything. Now, the only thing I was thinking about, because some of the big hitters are gone, and you think, wow, that was brilliant. My only concern is that you get to the latter stages of the tournament.
And it's rubbish.
And yeah, you're kind of left with teams that can't believe that
Switzerland
they're in the
0, Czech Republic 0 in the final.
That kind of thing, yeah. But look, I can't even think like that after what we just witnessed. It was absolutely unbelievable.
I think here's the thing, like, say Switzerland were to 0-0 it all the way through and win it from now, at least they would have the France game where that would separate them from what Greece did when they 0-0'd it the whole way, essentially, metaphorically. But I would agree with you. We were talking about Deschamps. Does he get sacked after this? Should he get sacked after this? Because, like, you won a World Cup, you're an absolute legend, you've won it as a player, you've won Euros as a player, you were on the verge of glory, but, like, come on, there's, like, a bit of evidence here suggesting you don't really know how to get the best out of this team.
See, the tricky thing now is that we're in that strange situation where the World Cup qualifying campaign has already started, which usually wouldn't be the case. You would be going straight into a qualification campaign after a major tournament. So does that help his cause? But he got it so wrong last night with his team selection. I know, say, for example, this evening, there's talk that England are going to go 3 at the back to try and mirror what Germany are doing. But they're 2 teams that maybe are quite close in terms of ability. France should be beating Switzerland. France don't need to go 3 at the back. For Christ's sake, we did it. Mick McCarthy did it. Said, let's go 3 at the back against Switzerland. It didn't work. After about 15 minutes, Mick decided, no, sod this. We're getting ripped apart here. Let's scrap the 3 at the back. France, like, even whatever about changing his formation, he got the personnel so wrong as well. And rightfully, he's going to be absolutely hammered in the French media for it. Then, obviously, he changes things in the second half. And there was a reminder of what France did to us at the Euros in 2016, where they blitzed us in the space of a few minutes. I haven't even talked about Benzema's first goal. That touch, that's some sort of sorcery, what he did there. It was unbelievable. I had to watch it back, thinking back to what Bergkamp did for Arsenal against Newcastle. And 3-1 up, Pogba scores, and you think, that is it. It's done and dusted. But because Deschamps had changed his formation to get them into that winning position, he stuck with it, and then obviously they leaked a couple of goals. But yeah, he's going to be absolutely hammered. And I suppose what doesn't help his cause either is Zidane is there. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, Jean-Philippe LeClaire of L'Equipe, we're going to talk to him a little bit later on to get his thoughts on who should be managing France when it goes to the World Cup. I'm just checking up their qualifying campaign. They've got Ukraine, Finland, Bosnia and Kazakhstan, and 3 games played. They've drawn 1. They drew with Ukraine at home. So it's not the easiest group of all time, but it's also not a very difficult group. Finland would be the only other threat apart from Ukraine at this point. And really, are we going to say Finland are going to knock France out at this stage? Like, you know, there'll be a playoff at least guaranteed for them. So I don't know. Stick Zidane in, give us a bit of crack, right?
Absolutely. Well, do you know what? Whoever does come in, or if Deschamps stays, what's going to be the future for Kylian Mbappe? I think it was very noticeable last night after he missed his penalty. Very few people coming over to him saying, hard luck, Kylian, chin up. They just left him there.
Yeah, Gerry doesn't care about that, Phil. Gerry's got a heart of stone this morning. He's really not having this image.
No, I think
22-year-old superstar. You know, this is meant to be another tournament where he shows he's the main man, and he's had an absolute stinker.
So what we're saying is that his ego is so out of control that his teammates have taken a dislike to him, and that there's, fairly stereotypical French football camp riven with factions. Is that what you guys are inferring from the fact that no one in that precise moment sprints across the pitch to get in the field and go, yeah, Kylian, oh, sorry, I mean, no, look, I'm in the photograph with you. Is that what? Is that?
Well, we don't know what happened behind the scenes. For all we know, he goes into the dressing room and all his teammates rally around him and say, look.
Except Giroud.
Anyway. No, well,
Giroud's like looking in the mirror going, oh.
I scored my penalty,
Yeah,
Killian.
I mean, it's a great penalty.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, in fairness, when Giroud looks in the mirror, he likes what he sees.
Why wouldn't you?
Absolutely. And there was that feeling, though, when Mbappe stepped up. I just never really fancied him to score that penalty. Now, same could be said about Kimpembe. I thought this lad's had a ropey enough night. He's not going to score, but he did.
Great penalty.
And the Swiss centre backs, they were.
And Pogba's penalty, by the way, it was one of the most emphatic penalties I've ever seen. He obviously has his critics, but he had a great game last night. People will still point out that he got dispossessed for the Swiss equaliser, the Gavranovic equaliser. But he I think Pogba had a brilliant tournament and just played with a smile on his face. That's the Paul Pogba that we all want to see.
Yeah, so if you're PSG, you're selling Mbappe now to like spare him the day-to-day opprobrium he will face in the streets of Paris, and you're replacing him with Paul Pogba, and everybody's happy, right?
Sure, but get them both in the team together.
Maybe. All right. Anything else, Phil?
We'll just put a bit of meat in the bones in terms of what that all means. Obviously, the Switzerland and Spain quarter-final is going to be on Friday, and Spain, like France, 3-1 up with a few minutes to go and gave it up, and you kind of just wondered with Luis Enrique with his substitutions, did he have enough quality then on the pitch to get the job done? But they did, and you know what? One thing you can say about Croatia is they keep fighting. So obviously the last 16 ties today, England, Germany, 5 o'clock. I said it does look like Gareth Southgate is going to go with 3 at the back and a 4-man midfield with 3 up front and mirror exactly what Germany are going to try and do. And then you've got Sweden and Ukraine at Hampden Park from 8 o'clock. Well, all this was going on, by the way. Scott Parker shows this moment. He left Fulham by mutual consent and started to think maybe he's going to get the Spurs job, but he's the new Bournemouth manager. He said it's the perfect fit for both parties, and he signed a 3-year contract with Bournemouth, so he's got himself another championship job. Andy Murray is into the second round of Wimbledon. First singles win in 4 years, 4 sets before he saw off Georgia's Nicolas Basilashvili, and he was 2 sets to love up, 5 love up in the third set, and somehow lost that third set. He lost 7 games in a row, but he got the job done in 4 sets. More action today. You've got the 8-time champion Roger Federer going up against French player Adrian Manarino in centre court. Women's top seed Ashley Barty takes on Carla Suarez Navarro in the women's singles, and then 7-time winner Serena Williams in action against Alexandra Sasnovich. And plenty of drama at the Tour de France. More crashes yesterday. Dan Martin's in 70th place going into stage 4 today. Matthew Van der Poel is wearing the yellow jersey. Today's stage just over 150 kilometres.
The crash was absolutely ridiculous. Did you see it? It was a sprint finish. Sagan and Caleb Ewan took each other down. Or I don't know enough about the mechanics to know who was responsible for it. 65 kilometres an hour. Insane. In the full sprint that they went down. I don't know what state they were in afterwards, but it can't have been good. Phil, good stuff. Thanks a million for that. You can hear more from Phil today, across the day, on Today FM. And of course, you can read his stuff at otbsports.com. 7:54 this morning. Daniel Harris is with us. Daniel, good morning to you. How are you? Oh, we get him now. Daniel, I think, 1 second. Sorry, let me do some comments for you. Brian Dillon says, good morning, lads. Petition for GAA training of all ages to be suspended during major tournaments. Kids training at 6 and my own at 8. Shambles. I mean, had to leave just as the 3-3 in the first game and got back, and it was already 1-0 to Switzerland last night. It was like, oh, come on. Now, in fairness, the phone at training, if you just, the RTE player, by the way, what the hell? Like, I almost never use it, but was forced into it last night. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, I've needed to get it back pre-tournament. I knew that was not going to sort me if I happened to be out and about during a game.
Fair play to Switzerland. You couldn't make Swiss up. Surely Deschamps' job isn't safe now. Zizou incoming, asks Andrew Garrity. We'll get into that a little bit later with Jean-Philippe LeClaire. In the meantime, Daniel Harris is with us. Daniel, good morning to you.
Hiya.
Football, bloody hell.
Yeah, what a day.
Where do you want to start, right? What... The weird thing, right? Because we were talking about this yesterday, and I had predicted that we were going to start getting these very cagey knockout matches where everybody battens down the hatches, and I was completely wrong. Yet, that's kind of what France tried to do, and we're just incapable of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're playing France, ultimately you've got to score because you know that they're going to. And when you look at their defence, that is probably their weak point. I mean, particularly when they decide to play three at the back, as they did. All of a sudden, you're thinking there's two massive holes in each corner of the pitch. And Switzerland obviously came with a plan. That plan was to try and get at France, because I think with France, they've got so many good attackers that if they have a lot of the ball, you're going to need to score a lot of goals to even get a draw against them. I mean, well, we saw that Switzerland had to score 3 times to get a draw. And the only way you're going to be able to score 3 times is if you get the ball down the other end. And particularly, I mean, if you don't have that great a defence, which Switzerland don't, then I guess in a way it sort of determines your tactics for you. And there's more than one way to do it. I mean, you saw like Mourinho's Chelsea team in particular were famous for winning by the odd goal. Gerard Houlier's Liverpool also would try and do that. And there's more than one way to do it. But I guess Switzerland felt that France's weakness was in attack, so they tried to have a go at them. Sorry, Switzerland's weakness was at the back. France's weakness was at the back. I'll get it right one of these days. and they tried to have a go at them, and it worked out well. I mean, Switzerland should have finished the game in normal time, really.
It is a remarkable level of overthinking from Deschamps, isn't it?
I mean, it seemed very clear, and I'm sure we were talking about this during the World Cup, that France won that World Cup in spite of their manager, not because of their manager. They were quite negative during the World Cup. They won the World Cup because they had the best players, and I didn't feel like we've seen lots that suggested to us that Deschamps was some brilliant manager. He just had the best players. And he's just had the best players now, but winning tournaments is difficult. I think that I remember before the tournament, that kind of looking down the odds and thinking, well, who should I bet on here? And France were prohibitive, so it's just pointless betting on France because the odds on France were short, but much shorter than you would think they should be in any tournament, because you lose one game and you're gone, and there are so many teams that can hurt you. And the reason why I thought France would win it was because I felt like they were the team least likely to lose a game like that, which shows what I know. But you can lose any game to any team in any game of football, which is why we keep seeing, which is why Pep Guardiola's Man City haven't won the Champions League, because they can keep being the best team in Europe, but it doesn't mean you'll be the best team in Europe every time that you have to prove that you're the best team in Europe. And I think if they did have a better coach, maybe they would be better, because I don't think we can look at yesterday and think, well, the reason why that happened wasn't significantly because of that back three that Deschamps tried to play that invited Switzerland into the game to begin with.
I don't really know what's going to happen with France now, and whether or not the right thing to do. I mean, obviously the right thing to do is to find a new manager who allows the team to play in its full expression. And yet, I do wonder about the dynamics within that group. And success obviously is this amazing balm that cures everything. Like all those cliches about French groups and factions that stretch back through history, they're cliches because there's some grain of truth in it. And I can't wait to see the bloodletting that's going to come, as well as England does bloodletting post tournaments in their media. The French do it beautifully too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this team, I mean, there was obviously that aggravation between Giroud and Mbappe, but most of the time they look to be having a great time. And that's kind of one of the things you actually read about it in connection with Pogba, where they're saying, oh, look how happy he is, blah, blah, blah. They seem to be having a good time. And I don't think that that they lost because there's levels of unhappiness in the squad necessarily. And I don't even know if there are any, but they may or they may not need a new manager. And then it's, I mean, Zidane is obviously available, but then it'd be interesting to see what Zidane did with this lot, because, I mean, I certainly wouldn't be so sure that the success Zidane achieved with Real Madrid had all that much to do with him, and not to do with the fact that he had Ramos and Ronaldo and Modric and Kroos and Benzema. I'm not sure. And I think that this one, I don't think you would put this defeat down to discord in the camp or anything. It was just that sometimes things happen. Football is a chaotic game. And what happened in this one was that Switzerland turned up and they played the game of their lives. And when good players do that, even if you're a much better team than them, it can be hard to cope with. And that was what we saw. And sometimes we always watch a football match and we try and find explanations for what happened. And sometimes I feel like we just have to say, well, football happened. And it felt yesterday that that was what the football happened. I mean, you could obviously pinpoint the back three, and that did change things. But even then, when you're 3-1 up, you think that against a team like France, that game is over. And then just a stray attack, a header out and nothing, when nothing looked on the cards, and then that brilliant goal at the end is, you could put it down to things if you wanted to, but it is also just sometimes football happens, and football does things that defy logic, that defy rationale, that defy our expectations. And whilst, again, I could say, well, I don't think Deschamps was a good manager. I don't think Deschamps should have played 3 at the back. It doesn't feel like they explain France ending up getting beaten last night.
What was your impression of Paul Pogba's performance?
He played really well. It had those classic Paul Pogba moments where he does just things that take your breath away, and he put himself about quite a lot of the rest of the time, which is sometimes the things that we don't see when we're seeing Pogba either doing the brilliant stuff or not doing the brilliant stuff. And that's always been the thing with Paul Pogba. Paul Pogba's top level is a brilliant level, but his bottom level and his modal level are not high enough. And if he gives you, if he puts himself about in every game, like he put himself about last night, no one would ever criticise Paul Pogba, because it's not about did he score a brilliant goal? Yes, he did. Did he put Mbappe through with an unbelievable pass? Yes, he did. You assume that if you get Paul Pogba enough of the ball, then those things will follow. The problem with Paul Pogba is when those things aren't happening, what's he giving you? And sometimes the answer to that is not enough, and that wasn't the answer to that last night.
Do you blame him for the equaliser from Switzerland? Do you think that tints the entire conversation around Pogba last night?
Not really. It's when you lose a game from 3-1 up, to say, well, it was that one thing that was responsible for the defeat is, I mean, you could finger people for particular errors, but ultimately there's 11 of them out there, and all they have to do is see it out from 3-1 with 10 minutes to go. And that's never going to be a failure of one individual. That's going to be a failure of everyone. And so, no, I wouldn't blame Pogba for them getting beaten last night.
Yeah, I think it was midfield player loses ball, but still there's 5 or 6 million different other little moments in the match that result in the 3-3. But equally, even for that goal, there are a load of other things that have to happen before the goal goes in.
Yeah, a lot had to happen to get the ball from where Pogba was to the back of the net. And so you can always take any goal back and say, well, he shouldn't have done that then, he shouldn't have done that there. Like, every goal comes from a mistake. But there are 10 other people that are out there trying to stop a minor mistake like the one that Pogba made, resulting in a goal. So you can always put things down, as I said, to individual errors, because you'll always find one. But to me, it's usually more about the flow of the game or the mentality of the team rather than it is about, well, don't do that. Although, also, don't do that.
Do you think Paul Pogba is a Manchester United player at the end of the transfer window, let's say, so that there's no wiggle room on this?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, probably. It seems unlikely that anyone is going to pay the money for him right now. If someone offered the money that United would take, then if I'm United, I am thinking quite seriously about taking it, because he's free agent next summer, and if he doesn't, and then you've got that situation where, on the one hand, do you want to commit to giving Paul Pogba whatever Paul Pogba's wages are for the next 3 or 4 years when he's never been entirely reliable? He was pretty good for the last 6 months of last season, but he wasn't best player in the world good. Yeah. He was good. And
you're going to pay him like the best player in the world.
Yeah, so if you're going to commit to paying Pogba that amount of money for 4 years at his age, I would be thinking if you could get value for him, then I'd be thinking about trying to find someone else. Not because Paul Pogba is replaceable, because there aren't really any players in the world like him, but when you have Paul Pogba, he can give you, or at least he can give United a balance issue. Yeah. Because him and Bruno together means that if Pogba's prepared to put in the work of a box-to-box midfield player, then that is fine. If he isn't, then you need another player. Yeah.
Varane, is there anything on that?
I'm told that Varane wants to come to United. There's concern that from Varane's people, I think, that do United want a centre-back more than they want a midfield player? also once they've done the Jadon Sancho deal, what is their next priority? And I would say that they appear to, I think they're concerned that United want the midfielder next, and then they'll see what happens with Varane. But I'm not sure that I would actually, if I hadn't heard that, and you said to me, does Solskjaer want a defender or a midfielder? I think he wants to defend more than he wants a midfield player. So I think there is a fairly decent chance Varane goes to United because he's available quite cheaply, relatively speaking, and he's someone that you could expect to just come in and be good. Whereas the other players that you hear people talking about, Pau Torres, Jules Koundé, you're not quite sure. You get them, who knows what's going to happen? You don't really know how good they are. Whereas Varane, you have a pretty good idea of what Varane is, and you could sign him and he'd just come in and be a certain bottom level that you know he'd be. So that is a deal that, I mean, I doubt Madrid want to lose him, but they can't afford to lose him for nothing. So that is a deal probably that suits everyone involved in terms of the player, the club, and the price. So I wouldn't be surprised if I saw that happen. But I never say I expect that one to happen necessarily because there's so much that can go wrong and you just don't know.
The papers this morning are full of the belief, and they tend to be right about this. It seems like the team has been leaked to them that Southgate's going to go 3 at the back for the game against Germany tonight with wing-backs, and I can understand why he's doing that, but yet we've just seen somebody go 3 at the back last night and it flop horribly. So what's your instinct when you see that this morning?
I actually hadn't seen what the team is, but I think that I wouldn't go 3 at the back. I mean, partly I don't really like 3 at the back as a formation because I don't think that why are you forgetting about the corners of the pitch? I think that you want to stretch the pitch and make it big. I mean, obviously you can still stretch the pitch and make it big playing 3-4-3, but when you play a team, either who are better than you or who are used to playing a formation, if you ape their formation, I would expect that you would lose because they know how to play that formation better than you. Now, England do know how to play 3-5-3, 3-5-2, 3-4-3, but the way I look at that Germany team, and they play that 3-4-3 with Gundogan, Kroos, and usually Müller in midfield as a 3. I think that is a weakness, and what I'd be looking to do if I was England is outrun and out physical Germany in midfield. So if you played, because the thing with Kroos and Gundogan is they're both beautiful footballers, but neither of them have any pace, and Gundogan doesn't have a lot of physicality either. And if you put 3 in there, if you put Mason Mount, let's say, or Phil Foden, one of those 2 in there, along with Calvin Phillips and Declan Rice, then the running power that England would have relative to them and the physical power is you would expect to be able to dominate them because they've only got 2 men in there really. And then the other thing is that Germany don't have good centre backs. They play 3 of them, but then they play Gosens and Kimmich at wing back, and they're trying to get forward. And then if you've got a winger and a fullback overlapping and attacking that space in those corners that are empty, then that is one of the best ways, I think, to get at Germany. And I think that if you match them up, you're removing an attacking player and you're also removing the advantages that I think that you should have. So I wouldn't play that formation. I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be that surprised if Southgate did because he's conservative, and that is the conservative option. I think that unlike France, England are more used to playing that way, and they probably have better wing backs that will enable them to play that way. But I don't think that is the best way of getting a result. But maybe I wouldn't say they definitely won't get a result if they play like that because they have players that can get a result against anyone playing in any formation. But the areas that I would be looking to exploit if I was any team playing Germany in any formation is I'd be looking to exploit the slowness in midfield, the weakness in midfield, and I'd be looking to exploit the spaces down in between the wing backs and the centre backs down the sides of them. And the best way of doing that, I mean, the ways that you play in, I think, 3-5-2, 3-5-3 are not aping that formation. They're either you play 2 strikers, because all of a sudden, if you've got 1 striker against 3 defenders, then if you put in 2 strikers against 3, the balance totally changes. And then so you play like 4-4-2 is quite good against 3-5-2 because it gives you those overlaps and it gives you 2 strikers, but it doesn't give you the numerical advantage in midfield. But 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3, it gives you that numerical advantage in midfield and it gives you a numerical advantage out wide as well. And I don't understand why you would turn that down.
And I think it also puts more of your better players in the team than adding overloading with a defender. Well, we'll see what happens. Daniel, good stuff. Enjoy the game tonight if you can. Thanks a million.
You too, everyone. See you again.
Cheers,
Bye,
it's
everyone.
Daniel Harris giving us some thoughts there. Jean-Philippe LeClaire of L'Equipe is standing by. We're going to talk to him next. We're also going to hear from Frankie Dolan. We're talking to Kilkenny star Katie Power before 9 o'clock, and loads more to come. We'll get to your comments. They're rolling in on the YouTube channel and also by WhatsApp 0879 180 180. See you in a sec.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
The Football Pod with Paddy and Andy, our new weekly Gaelic football show with Paddy Andrews and Andy Moran.
I used to have James Gilroy down on the sidelines, you know, and I just go, I said, Gilly, there's a goal on here. I said, I'm going up to these boys. So I ran up to John Morrison and I just go, Morrison, I get a goal here if you put me on, right? cocky little 21-year-old. The two boys said, this book is daft enough probably to actually do this. So on I go, goal. You can see me pointing out to the boys and I'm running back. And we win.
Download the OTB Sports app and subscribe to the GAA podcast feed now.
Why not check out the Boyle Sports betting app for a full range of markets on shots on target, assists, passes and more on every match of the Euros, all powered by Opta. Rated 4.5 stars on the App Store, you'll find all our latest odds and offers for the Euros. So remind us where to go, Stevie G.
Boyle Sports, this is betting.
18 plus, bet responsibly, gamblingcare.ie.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
11 minutes past 8 this morning. James says Germany were 10 minutes away from elimination, but are now the only side left from the group of early death. Shifty says Wenger for French manager. I did wonder, is there something about Wenger that might suit this?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Because he's French and he is a good manager.
Well, he was a brilliant manager, like one of the best in the world. But is he still?
Yeah. No, when he's not, obviously.
Or is this the redemption?
Like his... Yeah, like, I mean, the way he's clearly talking about the game when he's doing studio analysis right now seems to be outstanding, actually. It does seem, we sometimes just, it kind of like pops up on social media, something from BN where Wenger is after breaking down a game, and it is excellent analysis. And, like, of course, there are some analysts who haven't made great managers, but Wenger has a track record of being a great manager, and he's still studying the game in a very technical way. So I think absolutely he would be interested in going back into management, and maybe international is exactly his level at this point. I think it'd be a fascinating appointment. But, I just reckon Zidane is probably just a little bit ahead of him. I think that Zidane could work wonders for that dressing room right now, given he has experienced just how toxic a France dressing room can be, and trying to arrest that decline into that state is going to be an important thing, because nobody's saying that there was any trouble in the camp. There might have been a few touchy moments here and there, but it wasn't 2010 level, but it could happen. Like, all it takes is a couple of defeats, maybe a little wobble on that World Cup qualification campaign that you mentioned there, and all of a sudden they're going backwards again into that. So somebody needs to come in and put the arm around Mbappe, as we've said, and keep the team chemistry quite good.
And if you're Mbappe, do you fancy playing in Ligue 1 next season, and everywhere you go, week in, week out, everybody's booing you?
I don't know, is that a big factor, do we think? Like, his own fans are going to still adore him. He scores a hat-trick the first week, plays well in the World Cup qualification campaign. Football fans are fickle. Even when he goes to away grounds around France, he might be forgotten. Like, it'll be brought up, I'm sure, in like maybe an opponent will taunt him about it down the line.
You could go and live in London in relative anonymity, or Madrid, or Barcelona, or wherever it is, somewhere else in the world that's beautiful.
Yeah, relative anonymity. I'm not sure if Mbappe will ever have that luxury. Like, I can see why he would want to leave Paris Saint-Germain. I could see why he would want another challenge for sure, but I'm not sure if getting your team knocked out of the Euros is reason enough to leave Paris Saint-Germain. I think it's two separate things.
Okay. It seems strange they left Mbappe walk off on his own. Very few teammates approaching. This guy's still only 22, yet nobody helped him out, says Mark Staines. I don't know. Well, look, let's wait and see. We'll hear from France in a moment to see exactly if that is a big deal or not. For me, Lloris was to blame. Very poor keeper. Also, Deschamps could have brought on the reserve keeper who had a great record of saving penalties, says Noel Cathal. The Lloris penalty record before the one he saved in normal time, pretty abysmal. And then he got his once in every 6 years save out of the way in normal time, and just couldn't keep any of them out in the penalty shootout.
Yeah, it is interesting that the one he got his arm to in the penalty shootout was also with his right arm, and it just seemed that arm had lost all its strength after doing all that penalty saving in normal time.
Bit of a noodle arm at that stage.
Yeah, I think so. They did man on the bench. And I think the Athletic had done a ranking of the best goalkeepers when it comes to penalty shootout, and I think Lloris was 16 from 16, so he was probably the worst placed to do it. I think their headline had actually said something like sub Lloris before penalties. It would have been an extraordinarily harsh thing to do had he saved the penalty in normal time and Deschamps was like, get off, we've got another guy who's even better than you.
Well, Lloris got 7 out of 10 from L'Equipe last night. Karim Benzema got 8 out of 10, which is, Benzema, that drag through and the dink finish, amazing, and he kind of looked like a spider. Varane 3, Lenglet 2, Kimpembe 2, Pavard 2, Pogba 6, Kante 5, Rabiot 5, Griezmann 5, Mbappe 4. So 4 out of 10, still a pass. He passed the leaving.
He passed the leaving, so he is at least he's not even on the Mount Rushmore of people being scapegoated this morning. Those 4 defenders are up there and Mbappe misses out.
Deschamps 3. That is not a pass.
No, that is not
Maybe
a pass.
It is these days.
There's your scapegoat.
Maybe in the grade inflation, the generation that everybody needs to get a pass. 3 is 3 out of 10. Is 3 out of 10 pass? Are they giving you an old D minus? Or
everyone gets a medal nowadays.
Well, you're still getting points for an E, aren't you?
Is that right?
Oh
God. Deschamps is the fall guy now. Like, there is no other option. You can't just afford to cut loose a bunch of those French players. If there is, or maybe there is no fall guy. That's option A. That there is no fall guy. That this squad, this manager proceed. But this is France, and I presume Jean-Philippe will tell us how France needs its hero to fall on its sword, its past hero to fall on its sword. And I think that person just has to be Deschamps. And
well, it's not going to be any of the players, is it?
Exactly. There is no other way around this. And it is harsh. He's a World Cup winning manager. He's a legend of the game. Things won't be easy to get rid of him because I'm sure he wants another crack at it. He's a competitor. And redemption in Qatar is all he's thinking about. Don't think he's going to get that chance. Like, we're looking at by the way, sorry, I just see that there's we've got another comment in from Sheahan saying it's shaping up for England to win the Euros. And the one thing you must say is that in the midst of all this madness, it might just result in the team best capable of pulling out a 1-0, lifting the trophy at the end. And maybe we completely wrote down that England 1-0 over Croatia. And certainly
Croatia are really good.
They got better. They certainly got better as the tournament went on. They finished the group stages really well, were excellent against Scotland, and then were really good yesterday. The Czech Republic, I think, with the Czech Republic and Switzerland, these are the 2 teams that we have massive. We'll come back to that because I know that's we got the guests on the line. Yeah,
Jean-Philippe, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning.
Well, a bit of madness from Didier Deschamps in the team selection, and yet they nearly got away with it. So what is the general consensus in France about how the team performed, and particularly how Deschamps performed?
It's a kind of a surprise because there was a kind of national dogma or faith that whatever happened, Deschamps, as a master tactician, will find the solution. And obviously, yesterday night, he didn't find the solution. And to be honest, since the world of this Euro and even the couple of friendlies we had before, he has never been able to find the solution. We played 6 games, 2 friendly, 4 games in the Euro, and we had something like 4 systems. Even yesterday night, we had 3 different systems, and it was a bit of a mess. And it's not very Deschamps-like, if we can put it like this.
It seemed like he was trying to find a solution for a problem that he created last night.
Yeah, I mean, he had this funny idea to start with back 3 or back 5 defense, and he starts with Lenglet, and I'm sure you know that he had a poor season with Barcelona. He didn't play a single minute with France during the friendlies, and so I think Lenglet was not ready to play, and but we can't blame Lenglet for everything that happened last night. And when you are leading 3-1 like this, whatever the tactics you are playing, whatever the system, I mean, we have been too arrogant. I think leading 3-1, surviving a penalty, surviving being playing so bad. We thought it was over, and the Swiss were not okay with this, and they surprised us, and they deserved their qualification. We only played well for 20 minutes. I mean, from the penalty stopped by Loris to the third goal scored by Pogba. But apart from that, we had a very poor game, and we had a very good game against Germany, then a poor game against Hungary, and a poor game against Portugal. So we deserve to be back home.
Can I ask what the future is for Deschamps? Is he safe or is his job at risk?
It's going to be his own decision, because the president of the French Federation, Noël LeClaire, is a huge fan. So it's never going to be LeClaire who's going to say Deschamps has done his time. So it's really Deschamps' decision. If he feels like he's a bit tired, he wants to do something else. But I don't think so. I think the World Cup in Qatar is there. It's going to be next year, so I don't think anything is going to happen to Deschamps, or if anything happens, it's going to be his decision. The federation is 100% behind it.
What about the French supporters?
Yeah, the French. I mean, it's a huge hangover this morning. People feel a bit a bit let down by we thought we had the best, we knew we had the best players, and we also thought we had the best team, and we were wrong, because it's not because, I mean, once again, it's not because you have the so-called best players that you have the best team. So the feeling this morning in France, we didn't expect that at all. I mean, we could have been kicked out of the competition, even by Spain in quarterfinal, or even Belgium in semi-final. But Swiss, so early in the competition, I mean, nobody was expecting that, including l'Équipe. I mean, we had those meetings, and we were already talking about the quarterfinal in St. Petersburg, and the final four in London. We have been too arrogant, too French.
Jean-Philippe, we might just give you a call back. There's a bit of popping on the line there. It's interesting to hear that everybody had that belief that the planning for the quarterfinals. I mean, you have to plan for the quarterfinals when you're the world champions against a team like Switzerland, right? Who'd never been beyond this stage in any tournament, certainly in the Euros, ever.
Yeah, like I can see why, and I think that there needs to be almost a battle plan for every route you can possibly go down, and every sort of combination of player you want to use in order to ensure that you have fresh legs to go all the way in the tournament. Like, you've got to be thinking big if you want to go all the way, rather than putting all your eggs into one basket. And at the same time, you do need to do your homework on the opposition that you're playing. You need to do your homework on the team that you are. And from what we're seeing, from the analysis that we're seeing from last night, this was just not a formation that suited the bunch of players that Deschamps have.
That's different, isn't it? That you do your homework and then you respond to it, even though you're not fit to respond to it.
Exactly. I'd be interested once we re-establish Philippe, because he made the point there that it's not the best team anymore. That they thought before last night that this was the best team in the competition, and it's not anymore. Like, is that actually the case? Did we not just see the exit of the best team in the European Championships last night, led in a fairly hapless manner?
That's a good question. Ask it there.
Is he back?
Yeah.
Oh, Jean-Philippe, how are you? You mentioned there that this isn't... You think that last night proved that this isn't the best team at the Euros. But do we not think that this possibly is the best team at the Euros, and their manager led them down the wrong path last night?
No, I don't think so. I don't think we are the best team, looking back at it, because our defense was too poor. And the way we played last night, the way we defend last night, it's not possible. This team is pretty much the same team that won the World Cup 2 years ago, but two players, and those players are Samuel Umtiti and Blaise Matuidi, and they are not the most glamorous players that we have, but they were very important in the system, in the tactic, and we really missed them at this Euro, and Deschamps hasn't been able to replace them, and and that was the main problem. So I don't think we had the best players, but we didn't have the best team at this Euro. I mean, we didn't play that well. Not only last night, but since the beginning of the Euro, of the competition.
Can I talk a little bit about Kylian Mbappe? Because in this part of the world, a lot is being made of the fact that after he missed the penalty, there was no visible support immediately from his teammates. I don't know if it's a big deal or not, but putting that in the context of Jerome Roten's comments about Mbappe's ego being too much a couple of days ago, what is the perception of Mbappe and his relationship with his teammates at the moment?
I don't think his relation with his teammates are that bad. And it's true, he hasn't scored a goal during the whole competition, but up front he has been one of the, if not the most creative. So I don't think the relation, from what we have heard, that there were tensions in the team, or that it was a question of egos or anything like this. I think a lot of players are pretty exhausted, and Mbappe among them. You have to remember that Mbappe played the Final Four of the Champions League last August. So he had very short vacation. He was back in action with PSG, playing the French League and playing the European Cup, reaching the semi-final, then joining the French national team for a couple of friendlies and playing the Euro. And I think he's a bit exhausted. He's a bit tired of all this. That's one of the reasons. Maybe he was too sure of himself as well, and he was asking a lot. I mean, he wanted to score the free kicks. He wanted to shoot the free kicks. He wanted to shoot the penalties. He was asking for responsibilities. And obviously, yesterday night, I mean, he should have scored this penalty 100 times. But I don't think it was a question so much of egos, more a question of players being tired and the tactics being so bad. And once again, people are very disappointed by what Deschamps has done with this team since the beginning of the Euro, and especially last night. I mean, it's easy to say now, but there was a lot of skepticism before the game with this idea of playing a back three with Longley, and people were not too enthusiastic about the idea, and for once we were right and Deschamps was wrong.
I have two quick questions for you. Is there ever any chance of Arsene Wenger being the French national team manager?
Oh, no, you're kidding, or what? No. Nobody's talking about Arsene Wenger. I mean, a lot of people are going to talk about Zidane because he hasn't got a job, and recently Florentino Perez said that Zidane wanted to coach the French national team, but I don't think Wenger is an option. And as I told you, I don't think Deschamps is in any danger. It's only his decision. If he wants to stay, he will stay. That's 100% sure. It's only if he's tired of the job that they will have to look at the other option. And I think Zidane will be the option number one, not Wenger.
It's kind of crazy that there's no consequences for Deschamps then on last night.
Excuse me, I didn't get it.
There's no consequence then for Deschamps for last night.
I think he has lost a lot of magic for the French public. He's not the master tactician that he used to be. But if you talk about being in danger and being fired and anything like this, but it's his worst tournament with the French national team. With Deschamps, you also have to understand from where we are coming back with Deschamps, because before Deschamps, it was French national team was a disaster, and with him we reached the quarterfinal in Brazil, the final at the Euro that we organized in France, then we won the World Cup. So even if we are all very disappointed by this very early exit in the Euro, you have to remember. I mean, he's not such a bad coach. He has done a lot of mistakes, but people, I think, still believe in him. And we thought he was a kind of a Superman, super tactician, and obviously is not a genius, but he's still a good coach. And I mean, personally, I don't see any reason. I mean, if it's Zidane, okay, but if it's not Zidane, we should keep Deschamps.
And last question is about Paul Pogba and his standing after the tournament. He played very well in patches. He was absolutely sensational. His through balls, there was a couple of times where there was one in particular in the first half where Benzema just couldn't kill it, but if he had, it would have been one of the great goals of tournament football. What's his standing in France at the moment? And surely PSG must be looking at taking a little nibble to see if they can get him in the team.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Pogba last night, you have the whole Pogba in only 20 minutes. He scored his incredible goal, but then he lost. I mean, it's his fault that the Swiss scored the third goal, because he lost the ball right in the center of the midfield, and it was really his responsibility to keep the ball and to keep the team together. And he had this fantastic goal, but his game overall yesterday night I was not really impressed by him, and he didn't defend that well. Even Kante seems exhausted. So if Paris Saint-Germain is going to go for Pogba, I don't know. They are spending a lot of they're ready, I think, to spend a lot of money, but Pogba, it's always complicated, and it's a little too early to say. I think there are very mixed feelings toward Pogba this morning in France. His game against Germany was fantastic. His goal yesterday night, same thing. But he also had a lot of very difficult moments on the pitch defending. So, yeah, very mixed feelings.
All right, Jean-Philippe, we'll let you go. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Bye. Enjoy the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, you too. Take care. Great to have you with us. That's Jean-Philippe LeClaire of L'Équipe.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Everybody feels the same about Pogba.
Yeah, and that Wenger is a no-go, and that Deschamps will get to decide his future. Except if Zidane is very, very interested, of course, was his last caveat there. But it seems, yeah, we're just obviously applying Premier League logic to an international situation, and maybe not a full, maybe a bit of short-term memory on our part as well about what a basket case Deschamps inherited. But then again, he did come into the job and get a golden generation, and there's a golden generation about to develop again over the next couple of years, let's not forget. So they will be favourites for the next Euros. They will be close to being favourites for the next World Cup. Maybe at that point then, you will have people from L'Équipe saying that his time is up if the World Cup goes spectacularly badly as well. And maybe we are just rushing to say that his time is up.
It was the Germans who beat them. I couldn't remember that quarter-final. Mats Hummels with a goal in the World Cup, in his first World Cup. So we're probably pretty close to winning in Brazil. If you get beaten by the eventual champions.
Yeah, I don't really. Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I don't really remember the France path that year. 7 years is a long time, but like it's certainly been a step forward since then. I do think that there was a madness to the 2018 World Cup where, not that France were by any means outsiders whatsoever, but it did feel that there was kind of an arrival mid-tournament where it was like, okay, this team looks like they're going to win this thing, rather than pre-tournament thinking they're waiting to be crowned. Whereas on this occasion, pre-tournament was like, okay, what's the point of even playing this tournament? Just put the crown on Kylian Mbappe's head and let's be done with this. And as we know, things are never that simple. No,
Lloris and Pogba and Griezmann and Benzema were all in that team that got beaten by Germany in Deschamps' first thing, and they played 4-3-3. If they just played 4-3-3 last night, we'd still be talking about, this French team, they're really good. They were living up to their pre-tournament favourite tag, but they didn't. I don't know. I mean, look, isn't the whole point about your manager, you want them to be tactically astute, able to change systems within games? Are we criticising here now for the type of thing that actually we were praising managers of other teams, particularly the smaller nations like the Danes, change things up, and because they win the game, they don't get slaughtered for being rubbish for the first 20 minutes?
It's an interesting question. I think that part of the reason why Deschamps is going to get slammed over the next little while is because of his in-game management as well. Now, of course, he did realise the error of his ways, and in fairness, Coleman coming on for Longley at half-time is just an incredible sub. If somebody told you before the game that was going to be a half-time sub, you'd be like, what the hell has happened? Why was Longley starting? Why is Coleman coming on? What on earth has happened in that first 45 minutes? But then they go 3-1 up, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't make a change until it's 3-2. Like, okay, maybe you're on the front foot, maybe you're like, we're France, we need to go 4-1 up, and he's not thinking about it going 3-2. But in hindsight, it is easy to say that like he could have made a better change than maybe even Sissoko on for Griezmann. Like, could Sissoko have gone on for Benzema or Mbappe maybe and left Griezmann on the pitch? Griezmann might have been able to fulfil maybe just a little bit more of a gap in the midfield when they were under pressure for a bit. There's a number of different things. They're all based on hindsight, no question about it. But the fact is that there's a number of different things that Deschamps got wrong.
Okay, so I've done all those comments there. It's shaping up for England to win the Euros, says Shane. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but I mean, look, they could easily be gone by 7 o'clock tonight. OTB AM is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with our new and improved razors. We're going to bring you sports in just a minute. I want to talk about Gaelic football. Frankie Dolan is going to be along around about 9:15. We're going to talk Camogie with Katie Power a little bit later on this morning. First of all, let's hear from Paddy Andrews talking here about his former teammate Keno Sullivan, who yesterday retired from, Sunday was it? Sunday retired from intercounty football with 8 All-Ireland medals in his back pocket.
I was looking through his list of accomplishments on Twitter yesterday, and the 8 All-Irelands, the All-Stars, All-Ireland club titles, the success he had, not just with Dublin, but with Clinical Crokes. And I think it says it all about him as a man and what he was like as a teammate, that despite all of that, he was still unbelievably hungry and unbelievably driven to get back out and give it one more go. Like, he easily could have left, and there was probably 6 or 7 of us after the 5 in a row in particular where it felt like a culmination of things, but guys hung on. And for Keane, he's had a bit of bad luck, obviously, with injuries and things like that, and probably throughout his whole career, his hamstrings were always kind of touch and go. But the last couple of years, he was still going to prehabbing with the physios, doing all the extra things you need to do when you become an older player and your body starts to creak. He was still so driven and dedicated to do all of those things, with just the hope of going back out for one more go at it and representing Dublin and playing with his teammates again. And when you've seen the success he had, and that was still his mentality, I think that says it all about him as a guy, but most important as a teammate as well. He's been such an influential figure over the development and the evolution of this Dublin team to where they are today. I was playing on the pitch with him that day in 2009. You know, we've seen the bad sides of it, and what he's gone on to achieve in his career is so instrumental in the success Dublin have had over the last decade, right up there with guys like Cluxton and James McCarthy for just having a huge influence on the success they've had.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear. It's interesting to hear who he picked, Cluxton and James McCarthy. Maybe because McCarthy's been there for the whole thing as well. But I think when the story of this team comes to be written, obviously everybody's talking about Fenton and Kilkenny, and Fenton in particular potentially going down as the greatest footballer of all time. But I think James McCarthy is right there. And I think that Keno Sullivan is kind of in that 1A tier of influential players, because there aren't many who could have adapted to the role that Jim Gavin asked him to do as brilliantly as he did it, and with the game nous and intelligence. And it was a very peculiar type of... When you listen to the Paddy and Andy pod, for example, Paddy Andrews constantly talks about the difference in their sweeper system from the sweeper system that other teams, particularly the northern teams, would have used. That he constantly marked space to clog up the area so that you could never score a goal against them, whereas other teams would use a sweeper to double team a danger man. And it's a subtle enough but significant difference. And Keno Sullivan was kind of the perfect manifestation of that. Rangy, athletic, smart, really good ball player, comfortable in possession, had a natural defensive instinct, and so therefore didn't want to go galloping forward. It was kind of perfect. Yeah, actually, that's a good point. The not galloping forward thing is part of definitely his makeup, considering there were cornerbacks who would have had a starting position behind him
who probably had more of an offensive mark in terms of actually scoring. Philly comes to mind in particular, but maybe that's just Phelan McMahon and the exact set of skills that he brings to proceedings. Like, he certainly would be more attacking than Johnny Cooper or Michael Fitzsimons, for example, and certainly even back when they had Rory O'Carroll at fullback, that was just a non-starter. So maybe we just needed to judge him as more of a fullback rather than anything else. Like, his game reading was exceptional. Could have played midfield as well, until the point when they realised that actually Brian Fenton was a generational talent and didn't really need much help, so they could have the best of both worlds. They could afford to drop him back and let McCarthy play well in front of him, and let Fenton do his thing in midfield. Like, when it comes to the story of this team being told, like Cluxton, McCarthy, Kilkenny are definitely the three that come to mind. I do think Jack McCaffrey should always have a place in the conversation around it, and Fenton, sorry. I do think McCaffrey should always have a place in the conversation around it. But when it comes to what happens over the next couple of years, Cluxton, regardless of what happens this year, may not be around next year, for example. Then it becomes, does McCarthy try and go for 10, 11, and then maybe...
They're not going to win this year, I don't think. I'm getting to that point where I'm like, I think, in my head, I think that Kerry have built a team of Dublin killers, and I think this is the year it's going to happen.
I do think that it will take a period of there being more than one team who we can properly say will be contenders to Dublin for us to have any certainty that this regular clocking up of All-Ireland medals will stop. We just need the medals to be shared around a little bit more. At the moment, it looks like it's either going to be Dublin or Kerry.
Well, you would expect them to win 1 and 2 for the next decade, as things stand at the moment. But Tyrone, if everybody gets fit and the new style beds in next season, you would expect them to be contenders as well. So, and they've got a slew of young players coming through, and Mayo's ability to turn out those athletes, I think, is going to be something that gives us a bit of hope for a competitive football championship, which is what we want. It doesn't feel like that new generation of players coming through after Con are as good as Con, and Con is as good as Fenton and Kilkenny and James McCarthy. So if there's a small step down from those players, then that gives everybody else a chance.
And the thing we need to remember about Con as well is that when he makes his breakthrough around 2017, that's a stacked Dublin team. He's coming into one of the best teams of all time, maybe the best iteration of that Dublin team, and he's starting and he's making his mark immediately. Yeah. Whereas now there seems to be a logic out there that we're not seeing who the next generation are because the guys starting are too good. Whereas if you could clone Con O'Callaghan in a weird alternate universe and he was coming along now, he breaks into that team. So I think it's beyond question that there is a step down from the O'Callaghan standard, from the Mannion standard of forward that is coming through at the moment. Doesn't mean that they're not potential All-Ireland winners, but it just means that the gap is going to stop growing.
Yeah. Very interesting to see what that evolution of the next group of players through, how good they're going to be, and whether or not we're witnessing a post 4 in a row Kilkenny situation where the team is still really good and super competitive every year, but not at the dominant level where they can win 5 in a row, 6 in a row, 7 in a row. Again, for those of us who aren't Dublin supporters, who are neutrals or other team supporters, then the championship absolutely needs that. Or we're just back to that same conversation about, well, we have a population of 1 million versus a population of 60,000. That doesn't make any sense.
No, and I think part of this as well is I'd love to just see a decent game in the Leinster Championship that matters towards the destination of the trophy at some point in the next 5 years.
Or just kill it. Or kill it. I think that's the answer. That is it.
Because you need the health bar of Dublin to be impacted a little bit in the early stages of a championship for them to be weakened come the business end.
Pardon me, 8:44 this morning. You can subscribe to the OTB GA podcast channel for all of our GA content across Off the Ball, or better still, you can as well subscribe to the Football Pod with Paddy and Andy for a new episode every Wednesday with Paddy Andrews and Andy Moran and Tommy Rooney. Now, Carl Mullaney is standing by, I think. Yeah, Carl, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, lads.
What's going on?
Well, Wimbledon continues today. Roger Federer begins his bid for a 9th Wimbledon title this afternoon. The 20-time Grand Slam champion goes up against Adrian Manarino on centre court later. In the women's draw, Carla Suarez Navarro provides the opposition for top seed Ashley Barty, and then 7-time winner Serena Williams clashes with Alexandra Sasnovich. In the first wave of matches getting underway at around 11 this morning, American teenager Coco Gauff meets Francesca Jones of England. Venus Williams is also in action as she goes up against Mihaela Buzarnescu, while men's 9th seed Diego Schwartzman meets Benoit Paire of France. Yesterday, Andy Murray was among those to get off to a winning start. He missed 2 match points before eventually overcoming Georgia's Nicholas Basilashvili in 4 sets. Now, you've all been talking about the draw and the Euros action last night, and talked this morning that the draw is opening up for England ahead of their game against Germany tonight. The two sides renew their rivalry at Wembley from 5 o'clock with a quarter-final spot on the line. The winner will play either Sweden or Ukraine in the last 8. Those two meet at Hampden Park in Glasgow from 8. And just to recap on last night's action, Spain and Switzerland advanced after a pretty remarkable evening. Spain eventually beat Croatia 5-3, but needed extra time. And then Switzerland emerged from a classic against world champions France. They won 5-4 in penalties with goalkeeper Jan Simmer, the hero after his save from Kylian Mbappe's spot kick. In J8, some matches to look forward to tonight. In Leinster in the Under-20 Hurling Championship, Laois and Westmeath meet in Portlaoise, while Carlow have home advantage against Kildare. Ballycran then is the venue for Downs meeting with Antrim. All 3 of those matches underway from 7:30. And some good news last night on the J front for hurling supporters in Leinster, because crowds set to return in larger numbers at the weekend. 8,000 supporters will now be permitted to attend Croke Park on Saturday for the Leinster Senior Hurling Championship doubleheader. Dublin taking on Galway, while it's Kilkenny against Wexford in the provincial semi-final. So that's some good news.
Yeah, it's great news. And that coupled with the fact that there could be 5,000 every day at the Galway races. I know there's all the debate about indoor dining going on at the moment, and the conversation about the Delta variant, but if you step back for like a little bit, the trend is our friend at the moment, and things are definitely getting better. Carl, good stuff. Thanks a million. Nothing else going on?
Well, just a word on the cycling, maybe. Gerry leader Mathieu van der Poel holds an 8-second advantage ahead of the 4th stage of the Tour de France today. Ireland's Dan Martin in 70th place in the overall classification. The peloton will be hoping for a less dramatic stage today, because yesterday was very dramatic indeed. Geraint Thomas, Primož Roglic and Peter Sagan all suffered falls yesterday. And Caleb Ewan has abandoned the Tour with a broken collarbone. So hopefully a less eventful afternoon at the Tour de France.
All right, okay, good stuff. Thanks for that, Carl. I didn't realise that Ewan was out, that he'd broken his collarbone. There was a popped shoulder as well for Geraint Thomas. So did he withdraw? I'm not sure, but not.
We're going to have Nico Roach with us on Thursday morning, actually, to give us the inside scoop on what's been happening over the last little while. It's been a crazy couple of days in that particular sport, to say the least, and kind of a crazy year as well, because like Roach obviously was writing about some of the crashes in the Giro, if I remember correctly, in the Irish Independent, and there was some ridiculous scenes. Obviously the one on Saturday kind of like goes beyond the comical, really, the one with the supporter and the sign, which is obviously going to lead to further implications. But yeah, what a crazy event. It's obviously being a little bit overshadowed by the Euros, but it's this incredible way to start your afternoon before, say, England-Germany.
Yeah. The Dan Martin's in the Irish Independent. He's taken over the Nico Roach diary, and he was saying that there were a lot of skinny roads early in the stage, and loads of street furniture like bollards and roundabouts and all that kind of stuff that is not really what they're used to, and it meant that everybody was very on edge, and so everybody was kind of giving each other extra space yesterday. And then, even notwithstanding that and the amount of experience they all have, there's still a bunch of crashes as well. So grim enough, but also unbelievably compelling. 8:48 this morning, OTB AM brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. We're going to hear from Frankie Dolan, the Roscommon legend, a little bit later on. He's got a new book out. Owen has spoken to him, and we've loads more to come as well between now and 10 o'clock. But a reminder, we'd love to hear from you. You can leave a comment in the YouTube channel, and those comments, or of course you can always just tweet us at Off The Ball or use the hashtag OTBAM. And we're also available by WhatsApp. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. Now, yesterday, UPMC, the GAA and the GPA launched a pilot concussion testing and treatment programme, which began with immediate effect and will run until the end of the 2022 championships. Both men's and women's inter-county players from Wexford, Kilkenny, Galway, Mayo, Antrim, Armagh, Donegal, Sligo and Waterford will be part of the pilot. Essentially, it's going to take their baseline concussion stats and give the counties a bunch of free concussion testing, which means that it's going to be much easier to diagnose concussions and therefore to treat them quickly if concussions do occur and when they do occur in these teams. And I've no doubt this is going to end up being rolled out, because it's a brilliant idea and it's a brilliant initiative and much needed. Eoin caught up with the Kilkenny star Katie Power as part of the launch. Here's Katie and how excited she is to be back playing with her county.
Class. I'm still nearly on it. I know I was buzzing, like even the day after I couldn't stop smiling. It was just great to be back hogging out with the girls again. You know, it felt like a lifetime. You know, it was when I thought back, and it was September 2019 the last time I put on the Kilkenny jersey, and you know, when the lads had said it to me during the week, how would you be fixed to come on for a few minutes? I'd say they didn't even have the sentence out of their mouth, and I was like, yeah, I would be thrilled. So look, it was lovely to be back, to be involved with the girls, but you know, I really want to be on the 15 now, the starting 15. So that's the next thing, and just trying to get the body right and trying to get myself right to put myself in the best position for that. So, you know, it's a lot of hard work the next couple of weeks to see if I'm up to it. So, you know, that's the next thing on the list.
For people who aren't aware of what happened, can you tell us a little bit about your injury?
Well, like last year, I ended up having 3 operations, 2 in my hand, and then 1 broke my kneecap 6 days before championship last year. So just been, you know, it wasn't a great year for myself, but you know, Kilkenny Camogie, like what way to finish out the year that was 2020. Like, so coming in this year as All-Ireland champions, you know, I just wanted to be involved again, and you know, the lads have been extremely good to me and extremely patient with me, and you know, have given me anything that I need in terms of my rehab and my physio, and you know, anything to do with that. So, you know, it wasn't a great year last year, but I'm really just looking forward to putting that behind me and focus on this year. And, you know, please God, I'll get a good run at things this year.
So you had just come back from a hand injury.
Yeah.
And it's 6 days later. This was literally your first time back out in the pitch when the kneecap...
No, so I was back playing a bit of club, the end of our club season. So I got to play like 2 club games. Then we ended up getting knocked out. And then we were back county training, I don't know, maybe a month or 6 weeks.
Right.
So like when I got the first operation in January, you know, they told me on my hand, they told me I'd be out for like, I think it was 3 months. And that was, I couldn't make peace with that, you know, like I'll be back for after the league or whatever. And then obviously COVID hit. And so there was nothing going on. And then the end of April, the start of May, I felt something like not right in my hand again. And I went back up, and I had completely, like basically the operation just didn't work. So when I went up then, had to get the operation again, and they had to do something completely different. And they just told me like, look, you're not going to be able to hurl this year. Like, you know, your year's over, you know, just rest, get right and be ready to go. And, you know, it was real disappointing at the time, but then the whole GA season was up in the air, so I didn't know what was going to happen. And then obviously when the GA, you know, we all knew the GA was going to be back, you know, and like it was coming around a small bit, and we looked into a few different avenues. So I ended up getting back maybe in August, and then I think inter-county teams, we were all back in September. So it was time and nice, and I you know, I felt like I was coming to a small bit, you know, obviously I was a good bit behind the girls in terms of their fitness levels. They'd played a long club season as well. So then was back, felt great, like, you know, was hurling well, and yeah, 6 days before championship in training, broke my kneecap, and that was it then, you know, so I didn't get to play at all. And
how does that happen, actually, a broken kneecap? What happened in that incident?
So it was just a freak accident, because I actually broke my other one a couple of years previous, and that was a collision, you know, a slap of a hurl. So this one was just, I was running after a defender, and I was gaining on her and going to hook her, and she could see me gain, and so she obviously went to change direction, as you would, and I went to go with her, and that was it. Just heard a massive crack, and
so no contact.
No collision, no contact. You know, the surgeon had never seen anything like it before. He just found it so strange, because any broken kneecaps do come from either a collision with a player or like a contact with a hurl, and I had neither. So it was very strange. You know, I'll never forget. I don't actually remember the couple of minutes after, because I was in so much pain. And then I imagined the crack, you know, like I was just completely out of it for a while. And then obviously went for the scan, got in for the scan the next morning, less than 24 hours after, and they revealed that there was a fracture in my kneecap. So that was it then. That was my year over before it started, and yeah, it was hard to come to now, especially after the whole hand situation early on in the year. But look, it is what it is. You know, you get dealt bad blows from time to time, especially in sport. So just trying to dust yourself down from that. And, you know, as I said, it was last year's problem. Yeah. So I'm just so looking forward to this year now.
How big an impact did you have though last year off the pitch? Like, has there been any chat with teammates maybe this year saying, listen, Katie, I mean, what you did in terms of being around the team and being around a panel last year really helped?
Look, some girls would say that, and I brushed that off, like,
Right.
So I was there for whoever, especially we had a lot of, girls that played their first All-Ireland last year, and, a few of my own clubmates actually, played their first All-Ireland. I was there, and I was there at training, and if there's anything that needs to be done, and I could help in any way, I would. I'd never take any credit for it or anything, so I wouldn't really know, to be honest.
Yeah, and sure, the biggest contribution is now being back out there and actually doing what you do best, I assume.
Yeah, hopefully I can repay them for, their patience and their kindness, throughout that time. And, it was great getting on last Sunday, but, I do have a lot of work to get up to, the standard of playing a 60-minute match. And, I'm not under any illusions in terms of that. So, it's going to be a tough, probably month, 6 weeks ahead of me, like in terms of training and stuff, to try to get up to that level.
And is that cardio? Is that strength training? Is it a bit of everything, just match sharpness?
Yeah, it's more so match sharpness, to be honest. Right. The lads are just trying to manage my own training load as well, because, I'm not able to train like the girls are able to train at the moment. If I did, I'm going to hit a setback or a bump in the road. So they're just trying to manage it as best they can. And so am I. And, it's not easy. Obviously, I want to be training, every single, need to feel like I need to, but, it's just trying to get the match sharpness. And I think your fitness will come from that. As athletes, we're all fit in general, but I just think match fitness is a different fitness. So just trying to train matches as much as I can in training and get up to, the level and the speed that the girls are at. It's been
quite the year, quite the 15 months for you. You've set up your own business as well.
Yeah, went out full time into personal training, and people were probably saying, like, are you crazy? Just as, we were coming out of lockdown. But no, I was doing the personal training part-time and working by 9 to 5 and training with Kilkenny and trying to train myself before I got injured. And, when I got injured, I just was like, I actually can't do that anymore, because, I was getting up I was working from 6 to about 9:15 in the gym, driving over to the Michael Lings and working from 9 to 5:30, and either going training myself from 6 o'clock in the evening or going back over to the gym to train other people. So I literally didn't have a minute. I suppose I'm at the stage in my life now, it's if I didn't take the chance or the risk, I might or might not have regretted it, but if I didn't take the chance, I'll never know. So I'm absolutely loving life at the moment. Delighted with the the change, and in the gym, just loving being around, and doesn't even feel like work to me. But yeah, it's been busy, but it's also been really fun, and looking forward to seeing where the next couple of years take me in terms of that.
Busy is good though, if you weren't sure whether or not to take that plunge.
That's it, yeah. Like, you'll always have, a bit of self-doubt and stuff. But, the one thing that everyone was saying was, like, you're young, you'll always pick up a job somewhere if it doesn't work out. And, they were like, you love what you do, you're good at what you do. So, why not take the risk? What do you have to lose? And, I don't have a house, I don't have a mortgage, I don't have kids, obviously. So there was nothing really there. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do it now. And look, I love working in the garage and in Michael Lings. They were fantastic to me, but, they understood as well. They're like, you're young, you need to take the chance. And, I'm delighted so far. And yeah, exactly. Busy is good. If you aren't busy, you might be, looking the other way. But yeah, flat out at the moment, which is great.
It seems that the nation over the course of the last year have placed a greater importance on fitness. They realise that it's something that you should invest in. It's something that is vitally important to every aspect of your life, not just about going out and playing sport. It is a hugely important part of everybody's day-to-day health. And I presume that realization feeds into your busyness and to people wanting to take up services like your own.
Yeah, 100%. I know the COVID situation has been an absolute disaster in so many different ways, but if we could take one small little thing from it, it's that people are actually now looking at their health and looking to, improve that, whereas in years previous, it was kind of like, sure, we'll put it on the long finger kind of thing. But now it's like, no, like I want to get fitter. I want to be healthier. I want to be happier in myself. And yeah, like we as PTs in the gym at the moment are really, really busy, which is fantastic. And it's just about, like, it's not about people trying to lose weight. It's not like just about that. It's just about trying to improve their lifestyles so they'll have a healthier life going forward. And obviously everyone has different goals about that. But, if COVID has taught us anything, it's, our health is it is the most important thing. Without that, we're not really.
Am I right in saying that you're working out at TJ Reid's gym?
Yeah, working out there. Yeah.
How's that?
It's great, you'd see TJ a good lad. Like, it's very GA orientated as well. Like, it's an absolute unbelievable facility. Like, it's fantastic. It's a credit to him and his business partner. In Kilkenny, it's streets ahead of anywhere else. So it's class. Yeah, it's deadly. You'd see some of the Kilkenny boys be in there training as well, and the Camogie girls to be in there too. It's a great environment to work in. As I said, it doesn't even feel like work. It's deadly to be there, and it's a fun, vibrant place. Yeah.
TJ also another person who came back from a cracked kneecap.
Yeah. He came when probably
13, I think.
13 or 14. Yeah, like he was saying it to me, like when the injury happened, if I ever needed a heads up or just run things by him or throw things out there, like he's very helpful in terms of that. So yeah, sure, no better man. Jesus, he's absolutely flying it at the moment, and he's someone that we probably all look up to in terms of his consistency across the board. The last couple of years has just been outrageous. Like, so, the boys are out the weekend, and they'll be hoping for another big game from him, and I suppose the rest of the lads around him as well.
What about yourself then? Are you absolutely buzzing for the summer ahead?
Yeah, can't wait. Just hoping, and I probably need to stop saying hope, and I just want to hopefully get a good run at things personally, and looking forward to seeing where the summer will take Kilkenny Camogie. It's been a really exciting time since Brian and the lads have come in, and they've built a super panel. It's no longer 15 or 16 girls, and our training matches are absolutely mayhem. Everyone is just mad to get onto that 15, and they know now, like, it's not just the set team that was there maybe years previous. Like, even coming on, you've seen like Steffi Fitzgerald scored a wonder point last weekend. Laura Murphy came on and made a massive contribution when she came on. Like, so there's a lot of girls there fighting, for the 15 spots, and what's not to be looking forward to. It's summertime, championship is around the corner, and the sun is shining. Like, so as GA players, we're all absolutely delighted, looking forward to the championship ahead.
Well, Katie, great to see you back out there. Congratulations on everything so far this year, and best of luck for the summer ahead.
Thank you.
It's Katie Power speaking with Eoin at the launch of the UPMC GPA concussion baseline testing pilot programme that is being rolled out at the moment, and we'll definitely be keeping an eye on it, and if anybody needs any information, sure, get in touch, and we'll put you in touch with the relevant people. 3 minutes past 9 this morning here on OTB AM, brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. For the second year in a row, the Ring of Kerry charity cycle is being done virtually. Myself and Eoin and Tommy got press ganged into doing this. I think Tommy is with us this morning. Tommy, how are you?
Morning, Gerry. Morning, Eoin. How are we getting on?
Ever since turned out they're going to have a bad year, Tommy's had a mysterious injury, Eoin. What do you think of that?
Oh, what is this, Tommy?
It's an inability to cycle.
It's no big deal, lads. Look, I'll be honest. I came on here last week talking the talk. I said I'd hopped on the bike for the first time in 2021 and I did 60 kilometres. I'll be honest, my body wasn't fit for it. I actually think I injured myself doing the 60 kilometres.
Oh, no.
I started going, played a match a few days later. I was crippled, lower back. I blamed the drive, but I knew at the back of my mind it was the fact that I did 60 kilometres on the bike and I wasn't fit to do it. So I actually, the next day, I tried to do another 10K to top it up, and I could barely sit on the bike. Like, so
it's a back injury, is it?
No, not really. Just tight. I'm just tight on. That's it, really. Look, there's nothing really to complain about. Nothing to worry about. But gonna hop back on the bike.
You've just worried. You just got worried, and you are complaining about it.
You just told your opponents where to give you a dig when they mark you first.
Yeah.
How many days do we have left, lads? Like, it's the 3rd of July. I think the Ring of Kerry charity cycle ends. So we've got less than a week. You know, I've done 70k, so I've got 100 kilometers left. You know, you can do it your way. How many kilometers have you got left, Ger?
I probably have about 160. I'm doing, you know, 5 a day, 2.5 in and out of work every day. So over the course of the month, that gets me to about 150. How are you getting on, Eoin?
Actually okay. I actually cycled 100 kilometres last week.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did. Over 3 cycles now, so it's nothing to shout from the rooftops about.
You kept that quite your dark horse. You're the Denmark of the group.
But yeah, I'm not sure. I think you're right, Tommy. I think that it's like one of these things that you can go out and you can feel like you're okay, and then a couple hours later you're like, oh my God, I'm screwed. It's like I can't walk up these stairs. It's like you need to kind of tell yourself unless you're climbing a hill, of course, in which case your body will be screaming at you, telling you need to stop. But sometimes, it kind of seeps in later on.
It gives you a false sense of security, because it is really enjoyable when you're kind of floating along. You build up a bit of momentum. You're like, I can do this. I can keep going. But you're obviously using muscles that aren't being used at
that's a key
other
point.
times of the day.
About basically being incredibly lazy, and then all of a sudden not being lazy. Turns out that your body actually doesn't know what to do when you do that. But maybe over a period of time it gets easier.
Okay, so what have you got left on? You've got?
Well, I'm not sure why I'm using the full month. I've got my 170 in since the 3rd of June, absolutely in, and I'm clocking that in. I'm not doing what you guys are doing, trying to do this in 1 week, or whatever or 1 weekend. Is that what the two of you were trying to do?
I had it.
Is that your plan? I'm not.
I failed.
I'm like, I look at my cycling skills much like Liam Neeson looks at his own life. It's like I've got a very particular set of skills. And I know when my set of skills also runs out, and that's it. So I will not be joining you on this 1 weekend venture, but maybe next year, maybe in a couple of months' time.
Tommy, are you essentially coming on here trying to make the case to your good club mates that the back injury is going to prevent you from travelling up and down to Meath, and that really, you know, it was the charity cycle that did you in, and now you've realised that you have to lock, stock and barrel declare for another club in a different county on the other coast.
No.
That's what's happening.
You have blown my cover, Gerry.
You're slowly breaking it to your teammates in Meath Hill that their days of lumping the ball forward to the big lump in full forward line are over.
But look, I think if that day ever comes, I'll be making the statement in my own way. I'll be controlling the narrative. I wouldn't be leaking it beforehand. You can check out my social media. That's where you find out.
Kite flying. This is a balloon that you've put out there.
Yeah, I actually think a lot of people who listen in believe that I'm some charlatan that's going to leave my club. I've had a lot of people say to me randomly, are you the lad who thinks he can play football?
There was people like watching Kerry Clare on Saturday night wondering why you didn't come on.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Well, we'll work on that.
Yeah, time is young. Okay, right, ringofkerrycycle.ie. You can take part in the 170 kilometres my way. It's for a bunch of local charities in Kerry, but also a bunch of national charities as well, and you get to nominate who you're going to do it for. So it's not too late to do 170k for a very good cause. If you need a bit of impetus, if you need a kick to get going, ringofkerrycycle.ie are the details for that one. Here's what we got coming up on OTB Sports Radio today between now and 7 o'clock this evening. The Euro Show is live with Shane, Will and Karen Duggan at 11. Good information from Shane yesterday on the show. He put it to Damien Delaney that the rumours were that France were going to go 3 at the back, and they're like, no, there's no way. Why would they do that? That makes no sense whatsoever. I'll be very interested to see what happens. And then lo and behold, he was right. So if you want to be prepped for the 5 and 8 o'clock kickoffs tonight, then tune in at 11 o'clock on all of our social channels. OTB Gold at 1 o'clock is a classic with Nigel Mansell. Dadcast at 3, career retrospective Matt Holland at 4, and OTB Gold at 6 is Jason Sherlock, and then the show is live tonight with immediate breaking news and reaction to England 0, Germany 0, Germany 5-4 on penalties. Coming up before 10 o'clock this morning on OTB AM, Gordon Darcy and Derry Thornley. We're back after these with Roscommon legend Frankie Dolan.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Have you subscribed to the OTB Football Podcast? If not, here's some of what you've missed over the last week.
So for emotional reasons, for my mental health, I don't want England to beat Germany. I want Germany to beat England. I shouldn't be saying this.
That is such a penalty. Should it be a red card?
I don't think it should be a penalty.
I'm off.
What are you doing back there? What are you doing there? What are you doing there? And he's ruined. I would keep Gilmore there.
For the best Euro 2020 coverage, subscribe now to the OTB Football Podcast wherever you get your podcasts and download the OTB Sports app.
Why not check out the Boyle Sports betting app for the latest betting and stats on every player and team with the Boyle Sports Euro Stats Centre. Rated 4.5 stars on the App Store, you'll find all our latest odds and offers for the Euros. So remind us where to go, Stevie G.
Boyle Sports. This is betting.
18 plus, bet responsibly, gamblingcare.ie.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
10 minutes past 9 this morning here on OTB AM. A real treat for Gaelic football fans coming in just 1 second. A reminder, of course, OTB AM is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. We've got rugby coming up with Gordon Darcy and Gerry Thornley. But first, I want to talk about this. It is a new book. It's part of the Legends series from Hero Books. Frankie Dolan's book is called Outside of the Right. It's co-written, co-authored with Frankie and Dan Dooner. You can catch the full version of this podcast on our OTB GEA stream right now. We pick things up with Frankie speaking with Eoin about his soccer career and the temptation to go to England to try and make it as a pro.
Like, it's an interesting point, like, because it's, I guess, at that point, if you're nervous about going over to England, the one thing you maybe needed was just that little bit of a push, or somebody to just give you to kick up the hole and say, no, listen, just go and do it. It'll only be for a short period of time or whatever.
Yeah, and I touched about that in the book as well, and that's probably you probably nailed it there, that we weren't, as you said, given a kick up the arse to say, right lads, let's go over and see what happens and give it a go. But it didn't materialise, and it's something that I think about every now and again. I wouldn't think about that often, but I'd often wonder what would have happened if we went over and see how we would have got on over there, because soccer was our first game, believe it or not. It was definitely my first game. I preferred it way more than Gaelic. I played under 12s at St. Bridget's, and I didn't play again then till I was a minor. And I know Desi played a bit growing up, but soccer would have been his first game as well. And I think we were better soccer players than we were Gaelic players, but that's the way it just went in the end. We just ended up staying with Gaelic football. Who was the better Dolan at soccer, though? Oh, I was. You can ask him that. I'll vouch for that. But he was a good one too.
Where did he play?
He was a forward. I was supplying the bullets to him on.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I see. Why did you give up GEA between 12 and 16 or 12 and 18, as you said there?
Probably the main reason was I was told at the time that I had to make a choice, whether it be Gaelic or soccer. And, you wouldn't have that nowadays. But back then, like, that's what we were told. Well, I was told you have to pick one or the other. And I went into soccer, and, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the soccer. I travelled all over the country playing for Athlone Town and St. Peter's, Willow Park. And, I had a really good time of it. And, yeah, that's the reason we were told. It's strange, like, because you wouldn't be told that nowadays. If a coach said that to a young lad now, the coach would be ran,
Yeah, well, it's true, and there is that attitude out there. Like in the book, though, you do make the point that if you do want to make it at soccer, sooner or later you'll have to specialise. And maybe if you've been playing GEA for half of your childhood, you kind of need to be doing that in your early teens, if you want to make it, that is.
Yeah, well, if you want to make it a soccer, like soccer, it's just a cutthroat business. And I know a few guys that made it a soccer, and like the dedication that they had to do, to get to that level was unbelievable. Like Ray Kelly would have been a year or two older than me. He ended up playing with Man City back when I was around 17, 18, and he didn't make it. And he was one of the best players in the country here at the time, the centre forward. Alan Sheahan from Athlone has had a great career and is still involved over in England. And his father, Mickey, would have had to be bringing him over and back to England for trials and matches. And, every week they were doing something which was unbelievable, and just, seeing what Alan done to make it. Now, he didn't play in the Premier League, but to get to the level he got to, which was a really good level, it's unbelievable. And to make it now is probably even harder again, with the talent that's worldwide and it's so easy to access players.
Yeah, I don't think we actually appreciate sometimes some of the Irish lads who make it in the Championship or in League One, just the level they've got to make it there. A couple of things I wanted to chat to you about, Frankie. First of all, anybody who reads this book will know that you'll have worked with some of the most interesting minds in recent GEA history, whether it's at club level or at county level. So I'll throw this one out to you first of all. Who is the best manager you've played under in GEA?
Oh, geez, that's a good question, Eoin. As you say, I played for a lot of high-profile managers: Anthony Cunningham, John O'Mahony, Kevin McStay. Oh, geez, Tommy Carr, John Tobin, Desi Dolan Senior. the best manager, I'd probably have to say, and I only got to play under John O'Mahony for 1 year with St. Bridget's back in '97, and I played a few times with him when John was over the Connacht team for the Railway Cup, and I love John O'Mahony, and I'd probably say John O, and what he's done with the game, what he's done with Leitrim, then into Galway, you know, and he was involved with Ballina when they won the All-Ireland club title as well. So, you know, I'd have to say John O'Mahony, just the way he operated back in '97, it really opened my eyes. I was only 18 or 19 going into that dressing room, and Bridges hadn't won a county final for 20-something years or something like that, something crazy. And we got John Owen, and first year in, bang, title, you know, and, you know, it was unbelievable.
What makes him such a good manager? Like, it's hard sometimes to, even if you watch A Year Till Sunday, to pick up on what it is. Some of the techniques, obviously, in terms of motivation are quite obvious from that documentary where he's putting literal articles up on the dressing room wall to motivate players. But from your experience, what made him so good?
I suppose the respect the players have for him, you know, he's not a bullshitter. John O'Mahony is straight up, you know, and he knows what he's talking about. He came into our dressing room, and I'll never forget, he put a banner up, St. Bridget's 1997 Roscommon senior football champions, and like that's the way he came into the dressing room, the way you know, just the way he operated like that. It sort of opened our eyes and said, you know, we start believing in him, you know. And I said, Jesus, we might win. Like, this is my first year, and some of the lads who were there for donkey's years, I think they probably thought Johnno was mad, you know, because they got hammered in championships. They didn't even get to finals for, I don't know, 15, 20 years. And for him to come in and just put that up and to have that on the wall, and that sort of gave lads the belief straight away. So just this lad must know what he's doing. And we bought into it. And, you know, the trainer was savage. There was no excuses. John O'Mahony wouldn't take excuses. I remember one of the lads, he was the best player with Bridges the previous couple of years, a forward called Paul Brennan. And we called him Timber for a reason. But Timber was a brilliant footballer. And he was our best forward. And Timber told Jono, and now Jono and Paul's father, Donny Brennan, to be very good friends, and still are all over the years. They're very close friends. Paul told Jono that he was thinking about going to America for the summer. And Jono says, sure, go. That's it. I don't want to see you again. And he dropped him straight away. And that set a tone on, you know what I mean? And like, Jono he wasn't getting rid of our best player, but he was telling him he didn't want to see him. He didn't want him playing any league, nothing like that. And that laid down the foundations, I think, for everybody to row in behind him, you know. And, you know, something like that just made such a big difference to the team. And, it was some statement to do, coming in, fresh in, not winning a championship for over 20 years, and to do that with your best forward was unbelievable. Yeah, that's really interesting. You listed off a load of managers that you played for there, a load of great managers. You didn't mention John Mahon's name. No, I didn't play for John that long, so I wouldn't know if he's that good of a manager. I played him for a few weeks, but he got sacked in the end. He gave you the sack before that, though. He did, yeah. He gave myself and 4 other lads the sack, our captain and our all-star footballer from previous 3 or 4 years. Yeah, he came in and he announced himself to the Roscommon public by dropping 5 of supposedly the most senior and best players. So it didn't work out well for him in the end. There are numerous counties where this happens, isn't there, where a manager comes in and tries to make a mark. Sometimes it works. I suppose you would say that the vast majority of the time, though, it's probably not a great first reaction to managing a team. No, definitely not. Old people don't realise the rivalry between Roscommon and Mayo. Like, we hate each other. And I remember Mahan came into the dressing room after the 2004 kind of final when Mayo bet us, and like, he was just strutting around the dressing room. Like, lads were not in a good place, you know, pissed off after losing a kind of final to our greatest rivals, you could say. And John came in and he was just blown about how good Mayo were and what they're going to do, and, you know, all this type of bullshit. And I was looking around the dressing room. I've seen a few lads now, and I'm surprised Mahan didn't get a belt, because I remember looking around seeing Mixer Ryan, Francie Graham, you know, a few Nigel Deneen. You know, there was a couple of hard boys there that, like, wouldn't like to listen to that sort of stuff. And that was sort of the arrogance that to have, and I probably still have Mayo, to still have that arrogance. And I don't mind saying it because I'm great friends with a couple of ex-Mayo footballers, the Mortimers, and they know how I feel about them. Great footballers, but that Mayo have an arrogance that they think they're entitled to win this or win that, you know. And when I heard Mahan in the dressing room that time, and then, you know, when he came to Roscommon, like I was sort of excited that we had a new manager coming in, but it was sort of iffy that it was John Mahan that was coming in because he's only living across the border. And when he came in, he dropped 5 of us, and like I heard it over the radio station in Roscommon. I didn't get a phone call. I didn't get a message or anything from John to say, would you meet up, want to have a chat with you? Like that was disappointing, you know. Have the balls to ring a fella or meet him and say, I was only 27, that you're not part of my panel. And like there was 4 other players, top class players dropped as well, like, and it was done in a way that it was sort of, to me, there was no real balls to it, you know. Excuse the pun, but you know, it was done. It was leaked to the media and it was put out in the local radio station, which to me wasn't good.
Did you find out why he dropped you or what the reason was for it?
I didn't find out, but I've heard that he thought I wasn't good enough. That's what I've heard now. So I didn't hear it from John himself, but maybe someday if I meet him somewhere along the line, he might give me an explanation. But I was good enough in 2008, actually, 3 years later, and I was nearly at the end of my career. So I don't know why he brought me back.
Yeah, you'll have Offaly and Roscommon in Division 2 of the league next year. It'll be a nice opportunity to meet up and watch a game of football.
Oh, wouldn't it be lovely to be on the line in that game?
Tell me, so you talk about that Mayo arrogance. Is that something that still exists in Mayo, do you think?
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. And I don't know, maybe it's a good thing, I don't know, but I think they feel they're entitled to win Sam Maguire, and like, no one is entitled to win Sam Maguire. You have to put in a massive effort, not just over a year or two, but over a long period of time. And like, Mayo had their chances over the last couple of years against Dublin, and they just didn't take it. And like, I was at these games, and I was with people in Croke Park, surrounded by Mayo people, and like, they never sort of said that Dublin is a great team. It was always something was against them, whether it be a referee's call or, you know, an umpire's call or something like that. You know what I mean? And like, I don't, and like the Mortimers be the same. To be like saying we should be winning these games, you know, and you got to go and win them. They had the chances. They had chances all over the years, all over the last 20 years to win the odd All-Ireland here and there, and they never took it.
And you feel that there's just not a sense of responsibility that they take upon themselves after those games?
Well, I'm just talking about, I don't know the current Mayo players, but I'm just talking about, say, the fans on All-Ireland final day. They're always coming up with excuses. Like, they'll never say that Dublin were the better team. Maybe Mayo were the better team on the day, but they didn't beat them. You know, and you got to go and have the balls to go and win All-Ireland, and, you know, stop making excuses that there was a curse put on the team from 100 years ago or something like that. You know, that has nothing got to do with not beating Dublin in Croke Park.
Yeah, I'm sure some people still believe it though, and I'm sure they're thinking it'll pass eventually. Just one other thing on the manager's front, one of the people we possibly in an alternate reality could have added to this list is Paddy O'Shea. How close did you come to playing for him?
Yeah, very close, Owen. I met Paddy in Kinnegad in Bracken's pub one evening before he was going training with Westmeath, and it was back in 2005. So it wasn't long after we were dropped off the Roscommon panel. And, you know, it was probably a little bit too early for it to happen on. You know, it was still only a couple of weeks after we'd been dropped. You know, I was chatting to Desi about it. Desi chatted to Paddy about it. And, like, Paddy wanted it. He wanted it to happen. And he plagued me after that. And I have it in the book. I was afraid to answer the phone to him because I know I would have said yes. Because we clicked straight away. We had great crack chatting about football and where I was in my career and what happened with Roscommon and all that type of stuff. He wanted to pair me up front with Desi, and that's something that I would have loved to have done, you know, because I would have played underage soccer for maybe 6-8 years with Desi when we were younger, you know, so we would have been very close. And I wanted it to happen, but when I sat back and I gave it a couple of days, and I was thinking it was too short a time after I was dropped from Roscommon. You know, I didn't want it to look like sour grapes and throwing the grapes out or whatever. And I just let it settle, and it just let it off, and it just didn't happen. But it almost happened a couple of years after that with Tomás O'Flaherty. And you know, for some reason, I can't remember exactly what it was like, but everything was more or less put in stone and everything was done. But according to, I think it was the chairman back then, I needed to move club. And I wasn't moving club because I already had moved club maybe 7 or 8 years before that, or 6 or 7. And I didn't want to move club again just to play county football, you know, and that's how close, it was so close, you know, but yet so far. But it's something that I'm sorry it didn't happen at you know, when Tomas came knocking on the door. That's when I was 100% certain in my own mind that I wanted to go and play with Westmeath, because the connections I'd have with Westmeath, I would have went to school in Westmeath, grown up in Westmeath, you know, I'd have a lot of connections in Westmeath. You know, my father is from Westmeath, but it didn't happen in the end, which was a pity.
How do you think the Roscommon GEA supporters would have felt about that?
I probably wouldn't be happy, but they'd have to see where I'm coming from as well. Like, I was out of the inter-county football scene for a couple of years on, and I wasn't getting any younger. And like, I thought to myself, this is the only chance I probably have of playing inter-county football again. And so I gave Desi the shout, met with Tomas, you know, I had a great chat with him for a couple of hours, and he knew the lie of the land. And like, I suppose I was a little bit older and a little bit wiser, and I knew the time was right then to go for it. And it's just a pity it didn't happen, because I would have loved to have played the Westmeath for a couple of years.
Yeah, I'm sure it was a brilliant setup to be a part of as well, those couple of setups. Just a couple of other things just to touch on, Frankie. Like, I'm really interested in this period of your life around 2002 onwards. Like, you talk obviously about there was a couple of injuries, there was a couple of suspensions here and there. There was a period of time where you found yourself training on your own quite a bit. You were in solitude in the early months of the year quite a bit. Do you look back on those times as like especially grim, or do you look back and say, God, that was amazing that I was actually out here grafting on my own and trying to find that mental fortitude to be able to succeed?
It probably made me a bit stronger, but when you're involved with a county team, you want to be training with, you know, you need to be training with the team. It's grand saying you're training away from the team, but like, when you're not involved with the training, with the drill, with the games, you know, you're not in the manager's mind. Like, it was grand to be there training on, but like, I had a couple of bad injuries. I pulled the quad muscle before the league semi-final against Mayo up at Market Park one year, and I came on, and you know, I done more damage to it by just coming on, you know, and that set me back again. I had the shoulder operation after the kind of final against Mayo in 2001. I dislocated that against Galway. That set me back probably a year or more, because I actually felt, I have it in the book as well, I fell down the stairs a couple of days after the operation. I was living in Dublin at the time, and I was sleeping downstairs. I went up to the toilet in the middle of the night, and I'll never forget, it was a carpet stairs, and I took one step and my foot went from under me, and you know, slid down the stairs. My left arm went back, ripped the stitches, you know, I nearly put my foot through the door with the pain that was in my arm, and I had to go back to Blackrock Clinic, you know, and them little things and a couple of hamstring injuries, that all set me back. And you know, at county level, you need to be fit, you need to be training, and all that stuff set me back, which didn't help my inter-county career.
I do find it remarkable as well that maybe there was such an influence on trying to get yourself ready by running, and that was it. And trying to do that on your own, that can't have been easy on the head. That can't have been good for the head at that time, when there was maybe just a lack of appreciation about the mental well-being of players. Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, it's not a good place for any player to be. Even nowadays, you know, players, you know, they've every support they can possibly get nowadays, and you know, managers and coaches and selectors and whoever's involved with teams are aware of this, and you know, they're not afraid to ask the question: is the player okay? And that's something that I have, you know, especially this year. You know, with a lot of young lads at the team I'm involved with this year, and you don't know what's going on with players' heads nowadays. You know, there's a lot going on. Football, I think, is down the priority list, you know. But back in my day, football was top of the list. Football was before work, it was before relationships, you know, and that's the way it was with me. And, you know, when I was there and I wasn't feeling appreciated or feeling loved or whatever you want to call it, and not showing a little bit of respect, you know, sometimes I had no work, you know, I had no job. And, you know, nothing was being done. It was all left to myself, you know. So that wasn't good for me mentally, but it definitely made me stronger in years to come from my own self. I found it interesting that in the book that you said in 2009, you went to see a counsellor because you were quite aware of the ability that would have to allow you to speak about anything that's going on in your head. I found that remarkably progressive.
Yeah, and a lot of that would have to go down to my good wife, Caroline. Like I wouldn't speak to her, never mind to anybody else about how that like that back then. But she was really good to me. She knew my head wasn't in a good place, you know, and it was a lot of stuff. It was all to do with football on. It was, you know, that's what it was all about. I took my football serious. Like I played football at the highest level for nearly 20 years, and like unless you're dedicated and you love your sport, whatever it may be, you're not going to play at the highest level, you could say, you know, for that length of time. And like people don't realise the effort that I would have went to personally to get myself fit, you know. And you know, as well as that, you know, good free takers, the best free taker in the country is Dean Rock. He doesn't just go to training with the boys and kick a few frees. He's at it every other day of the week, you know. And it's small things like that you know, people don't really appreciate. To go to the match on the Sunday and they'll see, geez, the lads are pissed off after losing, and they'll be coming over to you and they'll be all laughing. But like, we were taking this really serious. We were training 4 or 5 days a week 20 years ago with Roscommon, no more so than any other county. And we were in Division 1 league. We were getting league semi-finals, and you know, a lot of the leagues then that we got to three league semi-finals. And the problem we had back then is we had a small pool of players, and we picked up injuries along the way. So at the end of these leagues, we were always sort of, you know, very, very light. And like, people don't realise the effort that we got to get to that level. And then if you lose a game, you know, you're pissed off. That's what you are. And you know, you put so much into it. It's grand for a person going to a game to turn up to pay their €20, but like, players are training, you know, 4, 5, 6 days a week to get to where they are. And you know, when you're not being appreciated, and if there's stuff being spread around the country or the local newspapers, in Ireland it's a small country, stories you know, gather legs, and you know you get portrayed in the wrong sense. And that's one of the reasons as well why I wrote the book.
OTB AM.
Yeah, there's more of that goodness where it came from Frankie Dolan, searingly honest and absolutely roasting John Maughan and roasting Mayo. And I have a feeling that you're going to hear a bit more about that. And the torch paper has definitely been lit on the Connacht Football Championship right here this morning on OTB AM. You'll get that full podcast on the OTB GAA stream. The best place to get that these days, of course, is the OTB Sports app. It's a brilliant podcast player, and you can get it there. Of course, if you're listening on Apple Pod, then an L rating wouldn't go amiss as well. Thanks for that. A reminder, OTB AM brought to you by Gillette. Good morning, start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. Tomorrow morning, we're talking to Andy Mitten and Keith Wood. Plenty more reaction to the Euros. Just a reminder, we will be broadcasting every match from the British and Irish Lions tour of South Africa. Cross Off the Ball, our coverage is brought to you in association with Vodafone, lead partner of the British and Irish Lions. Right now on OTB AM, we're bringing you Monday Night Rugby with Gerry, Thornley and Gordon Darcy, talking about the fallout from the Lions win against Japan.
Gordon, your reaction to the news and your sense of Murray in the dressing room?
Yeah, like, you know, there's an awful lot of probably similarity in what Gerry was saying there. To be honest, it was made even more strange by the way that Gats talked about Owen Farrell during the week, in that everybody very, very clear that they wanted Owen Farrell as in the leadership group. He got the most votes. I'd say he would have loved to have been able to take that soundbite back if he had known what was going to unfold in front of him. There is another talismanic figure in there, and that would have been not talismanic, but the biggest, I suppose, personality in that changing room is that Owen Farrell, and we liken him to Johnny Sexton, that, you know, that force of nature type of player, but he's just not guaranteed his starting place. And I think the thing about Lions Tour, and I've been on 2 of them. One of them went really well. One of them didn't go particularly well. But there was no continuity between them. But Conor Murray brings a continuity between 3 Lions Tours, and that experience that just cannot be recreated. And he's played under brilliant captains. I think you tease into what he has said, and it's kind of said, like, listen, I'm the figurehead, but I have a brilliant leadership group underneath me. So all the names that we're kind of surprised about, you know, that were, you know, everybody was, you know, looking at saying the Mario Itojes and the Owen Farrells, like, those guys have to get in the team. There was probably a couple of % difference between all the 3 scrum halves, where you're not massively gaining or losing between Murray and his Welsh counterpart. And this was just a good decision to make. It was a strong decision to make, and it backs Conor, and it gives an awful lot of certainty into it. And it also kind of gives you a good setup of how they're going to play. You talk about different leadership styles and how you go. I think you've got those people who you walk in. You've Paul O'Connell's, the Alan Wynne Jones, who command a room from the moment they walk into it, and then there's the people who earn that leadership and that respect by the way they go about their business, and that's very much where Conor will fall into it. An exemplary professional, leads by example on the pitch, probably one of the best defensive scrum halves and tactical scrum halves in the world at the moment, and that's what they need him to do on the pitch, to be the best version of Conor Murray that he can be. And like, whatever about his form being a little bit patchy over the last 2 years, if you want something to try and generate a bit of form off of, being given the Lions captaincy should really just set him off, and he'll be that type of player who's going to inspire by actions rather than what he's going to try and say, or the most impassioned speech that he can deliver. It'll be doing the simple things brilliantly under the most intense pressure in South Africa. Yeah,
it's interesting. Sam Warburton in his book, Gordon, talked about what a nervous wreck he was trying to think, what am I going to say in my pre-match team talks. Now, Warburton was a much younger man than Murray, so maybe that won't be as much of a stress for Murray. But you would have a sense of what a Lions captain on a modern day tour does, and it would seem it's a fairly broad job description from, tour at large and functions, and well, in COVID times I don't really know will there be much going on, but elbows to bump and maybe a few speeches to give. I guess you'll probably have an extra hand in morale or around the hotel and making sure everyone's included to some extent or other, speaking to the team, and then I guess on the pitch making on-field decisions, talking to referees. Do we kick for the post? Do we kick for touch? All of that kind of stuff. What do you suspect for someone like Murray, who, as Gerry says, has one match to his name? What do you suspect will be the steepest learning curve?
Do you know what, actually? I think he has played under a captain that he will probably try to emulate in Rory Best, in that I think Rory's phenomenal skill as a captain was, he's a very strong individual, but he had an incredible leadership team underneath him, and he allowed them to thrive. He wasn't the polished captain that you might say a Brian O'Driscoll was, or a Paul O'Connell was, who you might sense the flow of a squad or something like of the tempo of a team. Martin Johnson, those kind of force of nature type players, captains. I think Rory would have set a brilliant template for that, because he had, Johnny Sexton as one of the, Peter O'Mahony. Like, these guys are massive people in a team, and his job as captain was to harness and get the best out of them. So, a wise man knows what he doesn't know. There's an awful lot of captaincy that Conor probably doesn't understand and probably doesn't know, but he doesn't have to, because he has got an army of them there behind him that has done it all before. So whether it is your Owen Farrell, does he come in? Is it a Mario Toji, a Ken Owens? Talking to them, understanding from them, say, where do they feel, getting their input. Maybe not necessarily at the big decisions on a pitch. Gatland will have him ready to make those decisions on the pitch. But as the training is unfolding, as the team is unfolding, a lot of it is taking that information in, absorbing it, and being that conduit to facilitate these guys to perform.
Yeah. Gerry, I'm talking about this like it's a real sense of trepidation. I mean, as you said, he's 89 caps, he's 32 years of age, he has 3 tours. He said himself, I'm just going to relish this and enjoy it rather than feel daunted. Like, the starting point is, this is the pinnacle of his career. This is an amazing thing for him to happen, and, he should be delighted. Like, he shouldn't be kind of a quivering mess saying, I'm not ready, I can't do this. He should embrace it and enjoy it.
Yeah, and he's got the temperament to do so as well, Joe. I think that's important. He's a very phlegmatic, relaxed, calm kind of individual. He doesn't let much faze him or bother him. He's very even-tempered. And I think he's also proven, when you think back to 3 World Cups and 2 Lions tours, Irish tour to South Africa and so forth, he's a very, very good tourist. He went out to the World Cup as a surprise third-choice scrum half ahead of Peter Stringer and Tomas O'Leary, and ended up coming back as first-choice scrum half. He went to the Lions tour in 2013 as third-choice scrum half. Had there been a 4th test, I think he would have started it, and that's been very typical of him. Lions in 2017, he started all 3 tests. He's one of the key players. scored the try in the second test that dragged the team back. He gets better and better as tours go on. He seems to enjoy the whole touring concept. So I think his temperament suits this role, definitely. As Gordon says, if he just reproduces his best form, that'll be the most important thing, just leading from the front, and also use the lieutenants around him and lean on them. And, you know, that's, I think, certainly, you know, interviewing Brian O'Driscoll there recently, I don't know that he necessarily enjoyed being captain at such a young age in 2005. He enjoyed not being captain in 2009. It was just, you know, he felt more free. It can be a very onerous job. I'm sure captaining the Lions would be much more onerous even than captaining your country. I remember, you know, watching Paul O'Connell on tour and Peter O'Mahony. You know, it can weigh heavy. It's a big onerous responsibility, and there's a risk that maybe you can take on too much. I also fear that this tour will be unlike any other Lions tour, Joe, in that, you know, all the trappings that go with the captaincy, and you have a public speaking and events and so forth, they're not going to be there this time. But that they could be a great release for a touring squad as well, as Gordon knows better than I would. That, you know, the outdoor sports and activities, you know, going to school visits, whatever it is, meeting sponsors, they can turn into a bit of crack. There's going to be very little escapism. They are going to be living in a very restrictive environment, which is going to be very challenging for all of them, including the captain. But you're right, it's a huge honour for Conor Murray, and he should embrace it. And I think it reflects brilliantly on probably Ireland's greatest ever scrum half, and he should enjoy it. And, you know, I think he's got the temperament to do it.
How big a loss?
Gerry,
sorry, Gordon, shoot.
Yeah, just I think that's like it's worth kind of teasing that you're talking about Brian in 2009 in South Africa. I think a big thing about the Lions is saying the right things is great, and we did an awful lot of that in New Zealand. We said the right things and everything, but we, you know, on the pitch it didn't materialise. You look at what Brian did in that second test and what other players did in that second test, like that attempted a tackle by Brian to kill what's his name? Yeah, Danny Rousseau coming around the corner. But look what that did for the players around him. Now, I'm not necessarily saying Conor has to go out and do that, but the way South Africa play, the tempo that the Lions have been picked to play at, it's going to provide Conor opportunities to get front foot ball and make decisions and impact the game in a really, really powerful way. And that, I think, is going to be, and it already has been, it's going to be the theme of this Lions tour. It's what happens those 80 minutes once you step inside the whitewash. You can see Henshaw, you can see players that are already bigger, you can see they're already growing into the responsibility of what happens in that 80 minutes. And I think that's what is going to define this tour. And, you know, a good example of that is going to be how Conor plays, and that's going to be his captaincy. It's not going to be it's not going to be what a speech he delivers or how he does it. It's going to be how he delivers on those 80 minutes when he plays, and that is, you know, there's going to be a huge hindsight bias on this. When we look back at this, it's a successful tour. Conor plays well. It inspires the team. It just you know, it sounds simple, but it does tend to happen like that.
Yes, no doubt. We're talking here with Gordon Darcy and Gerry Thornley. Rugby and Off the Ball with thanks to Vodafone, official sponsor of the Irish rugby team. Team of us, everyone in. I should let you know, 16 minutes gone, Switzerland have taken a 1-0 lead against France, which is an interesting start to that game. Gordon, we'll come back to the points you make about the tempo they're trying to play with and what you took from the actual game at Murrayfield. But Gerry, to your point, just to bring people up to speed on the situation in South Africa, because as you said, this is not going to be a normal tour. The Lions have arrived. As they were flying into town, the President, Cyril Ramaphosa, was making a TV address. South Africa moving to level 4, so curfews from 9 p.m. every night for the next 2 weeks, no alcohol on sale, restaurants shut. It seems that the situation in the Gauteng province in particular, which is Johannesburg and Pretoria, is the epicentre of this very difficult third wave that South Africa is headed into. So, for instance, on Friday there were 12,000 cases in the Gauteng province. It has 15% of the population, but that's about 65% of cases nationally. The Lions are due to play their first 3 matches there, 5 of 8 in total. There's all sorts of talk now, Gerry, of maybe going down to Cape Town, and will it just be the 3 tests, or where are we? And that's not to mention, after 3 weeks, according to Rassie Erasmus, of, we think, a vaccinated South African camp following all the protocol and probably living in some kind of biosecure bubble, they had 3 positives, 1 false positive it turns out, but 3 positives on Saturday, and suddenly we were thinking, does the Georgia game even go ahead? This tour, 1, there's a stark backdrop, and if the third wave kicks off the way experts are fearing it does, there could be all sorts of questions about the optics of this thing even going ahead. But secondly, and hopefully it's not that stark a backdrop, secondly, just from logistics, keeping COVID out of the camp and not being imprisoned in 2 hotels, this is going to be a long stint for these players.
Huge. It's going to be, and you add in it started off with 2 weeks in Jersey, which was also restrictive, but it's going to seem like a holiday compared to what they're going to go through in South Africa. And there's going to be an awful lot of outside noise about the optics of this tour. You fervently hope that the medical forecasts emanating from South Africa don't prove to be true, because they are talking about a potentially catastrophic third wave. They're talking about it being a tsunami, and yeah, it's going to be. It doesn't even bear thinking about, and that's just, it's hard to even bring a rugby discussion into something like that, because it's altogether different. I personally feel that maybe they missed a trick, the Lions board and SA Rugby, by not moving the tour to the UK when they were considering this last February and March. You see crowds coming back now at the Euros, and you see crowds coming back even at rugby matches, even in the Aviva Stadium next Saturday, 3,000 and 6,000 the following week, whatever it is, and crowds coming back at Murrayfield last Saturday. It might just have been better all round, I think, if they had taken the chance of moving the tour to the UK. I know there would have been traditionalists who would have complained about it being, it's not a real Lions tour if the South Africans come here, but it's not going to be a real Lions tour anyway, as you just outlined and I've just outlined, because there are going to be no fans in the stadium. There's going to be possible changes to the schedule. They're going to be living in very confined, restrictive circumstances, the Lions players, which is going to make the week seem even longer. Plus, Joe, there's been I think a damaging change to the tour itinerary in that there's no midweek matches before the first and second test. That's going to make those last 3 weeks seem very long indeed for the players outside the 23 in the first test. They're thinking, have I got another couple of weeks here in this camp, 3 weeks in this camp, with no chance of me making the test team? That's going to make for a very long, drawn-out end game as well. I think it's going to be very, very trying, and it's going to be unlike any other tour we've known. And personally, you factor all that in, I know there'll be no home crowd there, but for the Lions to win this series against the current world champions might even be a bigger achievement than drawing away to the All Blacks 4 years ago. Yeah. Gordon, your sense of Gerry's points there?
Yeah, it's hard to argue. They're based on common sense, so that's usually a good starting point. I don't think anything in COVID makes sense anymore. So I think from the players' perspective, their resilience that they're showing through this period is it's pretty impressive. I know they're getting to do something that they love and everything, but the parameters that they've been outlined since COVID is playing, and I suppose the joy it's bringing to people who can watch it safely on the screen. But the players have just gotten on with it. A couple of players have pulled out of various tours and various tournaments and stuff, just saying they can't do the bubbles. But the majority of players are just getting on with it, and I don't think there's any curveball left to throw at them that can probably derail the kind of the mental resilient piece that they have currently. I agree with Gerry. This whatever about being in your bubbles in the safety of your own kind of province, your own club, and your own town where things are largely under control. You're going into kind of a very, very hot area with COVID, and it's going to be challenging. And I think these guys are going to they deserve everything they've gotten to this point, and I just hope they have a tour to play, and that they do, and they get to play the proper South African team, because we saw from Japan at the weekend that had they played a little bit more rugby, that would have been a little bit more of a closer game. And you just wonder how much that is going to be playing into the South Africans, as well as the Lions.
As an aside, and I know 05 and 09 were very different experiences, but did you find those tours long? Were you pretty happy to get home? Did they drag on, or were they pretty enjoyable and kept you involved and interested all the way through?
Like, you know, there's certain parts of being a professional sports player that are just not that fun. So you just have to, and I remember Keith Wood saying it before I went. I didn't really understand what he meant till it was much later about going off tour and how bad that can be. And I can understand when he was stuck in 97 that I suppose it's probably easier to stay on tour if you're winning. So, you know, 05 and 09 were very, very different propositions. And, you know, I came out late to South Africa, but it was, you know, it was an awful lot easier to watch those test matches in South Africa when you were still in the hunt.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, hopefully the situation improves and it's not as serious as they're predicting, primarily for the health, obviously, of people in South Africa, and secondly for this Lions tour, which just has this stark backdrop, as I said. On the pitch, Gerry, Alan Wynne-Jones, whatever about the captaincy, how big a loss is he? What's the likely Lions' second row now?
He's possibly a bigger loss as a leader than he is as a player, and I don't mean that any disrespect to him as a player, because he's a warrior, and he looked, even in the 7 minutes on the pitch, and as he has done for Wales and Six Nations, he's looked as good as ever. But they are well stocked in the second row. You could see a second row of Maro Itoje and Ian Henderson, which would be very athletic, very suited to maybe taking on the Springboks, whoever they have in the second row. It's just, it could, and they've got Courtney Laws there, and they've got good options, no doubt about it. It's a pity James Ryan wasn't available. Seemingly he has a bit of an injury. He was sounded out by Warren Gatland about going out, but he picked up a little bit of an injury in training last Thursday, which the RFU described as an abductor issue. But in any event, that meant that he wasn't called out, which is a shame.
Yeah.
But I think that they'll miss Alan Wynne-Jones certainly as a leader. I don't necessarily think that the lineup will be affected. I think, you know, Ian Henderson stepped up very well after Alan Wynne-Jones went off and called the lineouts. Itoje can be a force of nature, as we know. So I think that part of it's just more his leadership and his status and him being that figurehead. You know what I mean? I remember, Gordon, when the Lions lost Lawrence Dallaglio in the early stages of the Bay of Plenty game in 05. It just went, even though he wasn't captain, he was like, you know, he had been reinstated as an England captain. He was a World Cup winner. You know, certain players generate a certain status over a prolonged period of time in their careers, particularly forwards, particularly big men. And it just felt like a pretty drastic blow when Lawrence Dallaglio was ruled out of that tour. But I do think the Lions might be able to cope on the pitch, certainly, yeah.
That's interesting. I hadn't heard James Ryan had been sounded out, so obviously they were semi-interested, because I know he's not officially out of Ireland's 2 tests, Gerry. I know he does have that injury, but they haven't officially ruled him out yet, which suggests, you know, the word back to Gatland might have been, well, I can come out, I might need a week or 10 days to get over the injury, maybe.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and they just decided not to take the risk with an injured player.
Okay.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess this thing is a sprint. They don't want any injured players hanging around.
Yeah.
How do you see the second row then, Gordon?
My area of expertise. Yeah, like I'm I suppose a little bit less clear on how it's going to play out, because you look at the squad that they picked, which is very much around utility players and quite mobile players. So if that's the way the Lions are going to play against South Africa, then you need to have you need to really double down on that. I could see Henderson and Itoje being quite good bets in that regard. I don't think that necessarily gives you great options in the lineout. I know Faletau will be an option at the back, but I would see Courtney Laws or Hill coming in and into that just for that extra little bit of physicality, because like rugby becomes this beautifully simple game when you get parity up front. But let's not underestimate what that means when you're going up against this current South African squad are absolute beasts of players. Etzebeth, you have Snyman coming back now. You know, whoever you want to pick in the back row. Like, this is South Africa can just, without any game practice, can just wrestle you into a game that can sap all your energy. So you need parity up front, and you do need to match them in that physical stakes to a certain extent. So I'm not sure. I think Ian Henderson could lose out in this think we do have a little bit of a tunnel vision on that. But he's played one game and he played well on that game. He called the lineouts. Japan didn't really contest against us in the lineout, so we looked good. But there will be other players. The other players are going to play against more physical opposition in the coming weeks. So, but I just think like the lineout is going to be so crucial for us because we got such a good example of what the Lions could do with quality ball. You saw Aki getting over the gain line. Look how well he got over the gain line. They came from Chris delivery off the top. But it was Topurik was the guy that actually makes the crucial pass. And actually in the build-up to that, the way he played, he probably shifted the ball away from the breakdown 3 or 4 times in the space of about 90 seconds. So I think his actual loss to the way the Lions are potentially going to play this game is going to be exasperated as the tour goes on.
Yeah, he's been in brilliant form. So on the Lions 28, Japan 10, Gerry, I'll bring in on this in a second. Then Gordon, you might just give us some other things which jumped out to you. So I think you said initially you think the Lions, based on what you saw and what you're hearing, they're going to try and put real tempo into the game. And I think you mentioned Murray's quick, tap and goes, that kind of stuff. They're going to try and move South Africa around.
Well, I think they kind of have to. They haven't gone for. I think even just the little things of Billy Vunipola, players like that. He didn't take a risk on Manu Tuolangi, even though he was coming back to fitness. He's picked mobile players that can play in multiple positions. So either that's he's just looking for durability and trying to get through. But to me, that seems that he's picked players that want to play at pace in key positions. You look at the back row, Simmons, you've Faletau. Again, a little bit short on game plan. Conan coming in. These are players that look to avoid contact rather than create contact.
Do you like that approach? Do you think that's the right approach?
Yeah. Well, listen. I'm 5'10", so that was always my modus operandi was to try and find the softest point for contact, which was usually the open space.
Sure. And do you think that's the best way to try and beat the South African side as well?
Yeah, because and again, it's not an ideology. Big men don't like being moved around the place. They like to stand around rucks, and they like players to run into them, and then you get into an arm wrestle, and they're going to come out on top because that's not draining their cardiovascular reserves. They're not having to run around. They can make good decisions, and it comes into that. Who's going to win a contact with the same amount of a run-up? We know the South Africans are built for that, but what they're not built around for is multi-phase play, playing at tempo, 2 decision makers on the field. If you have a Liam Williams, Stuart Hogg, Conor Murray, making different access points into their defensive lines and making tired big men make tough decisions, they will make mistakes.
Gerry, what did you make of the game at Murrayfield?
Well, offensively, I thought you could see, the influence of Gregor Townsend over the last 2 weeks in Jersey. I thought it was interesting the way they regularly kind of probed the blind side early on. Do you remember Conor Murray linking up with Duan van der Merwe? So that in turn opened up the whole width of the pitch. I thought Dan Baker put some real pace in his passing. The Duan van der Merwe try, there was one skip pass right to left and another one left to right. And then from the recycle, van der Merwe scored initially a very soft try. There was a good shape, I thought, to attack at times, Defensively, I thought they got a little bit narrow at times, as Jamie Heasley picked up in commentary, that there was one occasion actually where I think Michael Leach ran into contact near the end of the first half and they had 4-man overlap on his outside. Much in all, as the Springboks love a bit of contact, I don't think they'll be passing up opportunities like that. But yeah, I thought it was encouraging enough, albeit that the challenge presented by Japan will be the polar opposite of what the Springboks present.
And which Irish players caught the eye, Gerry?
Jack Conan, thought was very good, leading carrier in the game, using the wide channels where he can be really effective. Got them over the gain line a couple of times before Ty Burns' stupendous finish. Ty definitely enjoyed that one, didn't he? Why wouldn't he? Ty was good. He's a good line-out option as well, which he played into his hands. Actually didn't really utilise his point of difference so much, and that being that strength over the ball in the jackal, but I thought he carried really well, defended well, and was good in defence. The other thing I noticed about the Lions as well was how early on they went for choke tackles as a means of turnover, all across the pitch, midfield, back rowers, everybody, Henderson involved, Bundyaki and Robbie Henshaw involved, and be interested to see if they're going to use that against the Springboks. It worked quite well. I thought Bundy didn't get an awful lot of ball to carry, but the little bit, as Gordon highlighted, he did very well. And he actually won two turnovers in the jackal, which only one of which he picked up in commentary. That's a real string to his bow. And I just sense that Gatlin's a fan. Robbie Henshaw just looks really, really strong.
Yeah.
But then Gordon makes a really good point, like, because the 7 Irish guys all went well, and that's not being biased. That's not wearing green tinted glasses. They went well, but then they're playing against Japan. So the probability is that none of the 7 will start next Saturday against the Emirates Lions, which will be a more authentic test.
Yes, sure. What was your take on the Irish contingent, Gordon? Finally.
Yeah, like I think it was an undercooked Japanese squad, and like the reason why I suppose I was thinking about the tempo was the tempo that they played at, and had they a little bit more match sharpness, I think they would have caused the Lions a problem. So you take that and you mirror it into what the Lions could do or can do. There's the guts of the game plan there. Yeah, like I said, all the Irish guys that they went with. I thought Tadhg Furlong was fired up. For one of some big ass collisions with Tadhg, and it's great to see him back at that I suppose at that type of form and a bit of bite in his game. And one of the things I love about Tadhg is he has that bit of dog in him, and the Lions are going to need that, because that position that he plays in is so pivotal, but he offers so much more around the game. He's redefined what a front row forward can do with the ball in hand. Again, yeah, Bundy really strong. Didn't get red carded, so that's always a good starting point as well. No high shots. But yeah, like I'd say Conor Murray will start. Now he's the Lions captains. I actually think he may start the first game in South Africa. But you couldn't have asked the guys to do any better to put themselves in the shop window. And for this Lions team to do well, they need the other players to take that and do better and increase the level of performance for the Lions team, so that when they get their next shot, they have to perform. And then it's an easy decision for Gatland, because you're picking players on form, so you're kind of pushing them to push themselves out of their comfort zone as a team, and still high. Like, this is the horrible bit about being Lions, right? You want to play as a team, but you've also got to put yourself in the shop window. So you're kind of screwed if you do and you don't. You want to. Do you push passes? Do you not push passes? Do you pass? Do you not pass? Do you carry? All those little things. You're completely dependent on the players around you, but you still want to put yourself in the shop window. So Bundy is a perfect example, as Gerry said. He only got 2 or 3 carries, but he made them count.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razor.